Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. So welcome to the work session, and our prosecutor, Tom Webb, is here this evening. So welcome, and I understand he wanted to go over a couple of things. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I'm glad he's here, so let's have a discussion. So.
Well, the question has been, the Amherst police do not remove vehicles that are in violation without a search warrant, is that correct?
That's my understanding from Amherst.
Right.
That is correct.
And Amherst is looking for us to do the same. And Tom had some thoughts on that he wanted to share with the board about the necessity of a search warrant, correct?
Yeah, I don't believe with the current village code, when I sent off to the village attorney, they presented me with an article that supports their position. And my understanding is the current case on Eagle Street, the gentleman had left, or is allowed them on the property. And there's a specific exclusion for search warrants when somebody's allowed on the property. There's no need for a search warrant. If the village wants to remove people's vehicles, I just don't think this is the best way to do it. And I'm not sure a judge would sign a warrant. To get a search warrant to go on somebody's property, that's pretty invasive, especially when they're allowing you to go on the property. I understand that the Amherst police require something to insulate themselves from civil liability, but a search warrant's an investigative tool. It's not to go get somebody's car because you don't want it there. And then what happens when you get the car, it's technically the case. I don't think the village wants to be responsible for storing somebody's car. I think we could either A, modify the village code, or we can do what we've done in the past. We can prosecute them. There would be a massive fine. And I'm certain when the sheriff goes out to execute, puts tape around their house, they'll remove their car. Or the code in Williamsville allows for the village board to authorize somebody to go take the car. Then maybe you guys could authorize somebody, but maybe the Amherst police would be just as happy with an authorization from the village board. But I think this is not in my opinion, the best way to go. And I don't have the final say on it, the judge does. The first question the judge is probably gonna ask me is, why do you need a search warrant to go on somebody's property? And the answer is, I don't. It's being used as a pretext to take somebody's car. I'm not gonna lie to a judge.
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation maybe where somebody didn't allow you on, then maybe the search warrant could go there. But it's just not inappropriate. And I brought the thing they sent me. I can leave this behind because I found it online. Here's the whole article, and then the pertinent page for search warrants. I don't understand it, and I don't think the village judge is going to sign off on it. So I'm trying to head this off so you can accomplish your goal of removing the car.
I'm sorry, I'm completely why I missed this whole conversation. So about a car on Eagle Street, what are we?
It's on
Evans.
Okay.
There's some issue that's been going on. It just came to my attention recently, where somebody has an unregistered vehicle in their back. I don't really know a lot about it because I haven't seen all the facts. I was contacted from an Amherst building code enforcement person, said that, this is how we do it in Amherst. I spoke with the Amherst attorney that did this. I said, we're not in Amherst, we're in Williamsville, our code's different.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to use this method to remove the car. If you want to remove the car, I'm here to help. I don't think this is the way to do it. And if a judge doesn't sign the warrant, it's not going to happen.
But Tom, the occupant of the house and the property owner, he permitted the police to enter the property, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So what would we do next though? Would they tow the car?
What would be next is you'd have to cite them for an abandoned vehicle,
Which it is.
but he needs to be cited, so they'd have to write up a citation. Then we would go back to the original day. You come into court. If I can establish that it's been there for, 200 days, you would get fined probably $100 or $150 a day. Then there'd be a huge judgment, and then you could execute against the property. The last time somebody came in, the judgment, I think, was in excess of $100,000.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
No, but I don't know how to do it.
But if the owner of the vehicle decides to finally just have it junked,
Everybody's happy then.
everybody's happy with it.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know how you convince them to have it junked.
We have to convince.
Yeah, but if you can't convince them to have it junked,
Right.
you would either have to present them with a big fine.
Correct.
And then, you know, because when people, and I can't speak again for the judge, but when people come back in the past and remedy it, they would set aside these large fines.
Right.
Or the village could authorize somebody to go tow the car after some type of judicial determination. You can't just take somebody's.
Well, we authorized the DPW to cut grass and
That was my point as well.
do things, and also the building department to, if there's a derelict building, to remove it. And I mean,
Then we just modify the
there's
code.
other ways.
There's other ways to do it.
Do this, right?
But it's this, I don't believe, and listen, I am happy to present the thing to the judge.
Remember the
However, I think
Brookside
if you present something that's not,
6 years ago? Same problem.
that I don't necessarily think is correct, for the
Was
village,
suicide.
then they're more on guard the next time. I mean, it just seems to me with a
33
slight
hillside. It
modification
took like a year.
of the village ordinance or some other process, or an authorization saying the Amherst Police, I think, is looking to be insulated from any liability. If you say
Understood.
it's, yeah, but you can't just go take a car unless you have a judicial finding. And there's no judicial finding. There isn't even a complaint filed in this case.
How did they do it in Buffalo? I'm just curious.
I can't speak.
Because I know there, I just know of incidents where vehicles have been removed on certain properties in Buffalo, and there was never such an issue.
Homeowners, you know, I
It
don't
wasn't a
know.
homeowner,
Yeah,
it was,
see,
it
that's
was abandoned cars on properties, and, yeah.
We look at, you know, in our country, going on somebody's land is a pretty big deal. And I don't think this is, I can get you where you want to go. I just don't think this is the best way to do it. And it really doesn't, I mean.
Well,
if
let me
Jeff would
ask you
say-
this, how was the other car removed on Evans Street? The one with all the writing on it? Who removed that?
The people.
The homeowner did? Mom did come around to do it?
Eventually came around to,
All right.
they removed that, right? The homeowner removed that, where she wrote on the house and everything.
You asking me?
After the judge told her she had to pay
Like 100 and
Okay.
$50,000,
Yeah, it was-
and then all of a sudden
it was astronomical, because when he was setting the fine, I forgot, I said, are you doing the math right? He just looked at it, because I thought it was like $1,000 fine, but it was 6 figures by the time they were gone. So I mean, I didn't do the math quickly in my head, but all of a sudden, you get people's attention. I don't know the legality of, well, I guess if the judge signs the warrant, I guess it's different, but this, I don't think they would. And even if they did, a process where you're using a warrant not for what it's designed for, I think, you know, is bad. It's just not the place I think you want to do it. Maybe the Amherst Town Code permits it, or that's the way they do it in Amherst.
That's what it sounds like.
Our code's different.
Yeah.
And if, you know, if you authorize the police to take it after judicial
Right.
finding that it's a bad car, that should satisfy everybody.
Right, because it was the town who went and inspected the property, I know that. It was the,
It shouldn't take that
it's
long.
derived from it, but the property owner is doing the best he can. I
Is
mean,
this the perpetual grass?
yeah, he's trying very hard, though. He's working diligently, He just had major back surgery. But he's working toward a resolution on his own, so I hope we can resolve this.
He had the vehicle, the large vehicle removed, he jumped it.
The big one?
It's
not
That was sitting there?
Been gone
For how long?
We,
Been a
a
while.
long time.
No, there's a different one there.
I think there's a big-
I think there's
There
another
was a
one there.
van there, but he jumped that.
There's nothing there.
There's no cars there at all right
I
now?
wasn't sure if we were still talking about the same
How did
property,
we-
like the homeowner and the.
You got another one.
That's the only Evans one that we had where
That would be
the
the-
town went to. That was the only one.
okay, and this isn't imminent, but I think we need to come to some sort of a agreement.
Right,
I don't I kind of go along, and Tom knows what the judge will sign and not sign, or he has a good idea.
I would agree.
And I think we need to either amend the code to do it or find out if Amherst will completely refuse to be involved in it without it. So I guess that's probably a phone call that needs to be made to either the building department over there, I think probably the building department, because they do the enforcement.
That's it.
The town and village code, I'm just looking at the town's code right now, are actually very, very similar, except that they did amend their code a little over a year ago. So the first part of the provision in both codes, removal of abandoned vehicles authorized. And they read identically for the first clause that any vehicle abandoned in violation of this chapter may be removed and stored by the police department or all other agencies authorized, in the case of the village's code, by the village board. And that's sort of period. With the town code, I assume this is the part they added, authorized by the town of Amherst code upon first having obtained a search warrant pursuant to Article 690 of the criminal procedure law, which permit the seizure of any vehicle abandoned in violation of this chapter is authorized by criminal procedure law, section 169.10. Application for search warrant should be made by the building commissioner and or his, her designee employee and or a member of the Amherst Police Department. So they added that presumably specifically based on the town attorney's, the deputy town attorney's recommendation, but I haven't reviewed any of that legal authority. So what our code says right now is basically that any vehicle abandoned in violation of the chapter may be removed and stored by the police department or any other agency authorized by the village board. But I think the issue with the town now enforcing our code, they're saying the Amherst Police Department won't do it without a warrant. And Tom is saying he doesn't think that's the appropriate vehicle to take the car. I haven't had an opportunity to look into that myself. The village board, the way the code is written, I think could authorize somebody else to do it, but that would potentially, so say, for example, the DPW, then I would want to determine whether or not we would be subjecting the DPW and the village to, that we actually have the legal authority to go and take somebody's car
Well, I think if they went.
without a
to the
judicial
judge first,
determination. So both codes, I say the village code,
Encourage.
and one of the things that's a little bit different from the Amherst Town Code, they've made a lot of changes to their code. And this was the subject of discussion we had when we met with them, where they have taken out, their code doesn't require essentially a judicial determination for a violation. The building commissioner can essentially determine that a violation has occurred and just act on it. That's one of the recommendations they're making to us to amend our code to be consistent with their code. We didn't talk specifically, well, maybe we did talk specifically about this example, but there were other examples where that's,
One of the issues I see is that many times people go before our village judge and he gives them time, and these things stretch out sometimes forever. And that's an issue. This is a quality of life thing, and when you start dealing with people who are living in the neighborhood, you get where I'm going with this?
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but that, and I'm not here to support the judge's position, but by the time a lot of these cases come before me to present to the judge, they've been kicking around for a year or two.
Mhm.
I've said, and we had a meeting about this initially, to file the paperwork first, then work it out. Not try and think you're gonna get it done for a year and then bring it, and then I mean, let it. If there's a violation, they should be cited right away and brought into court. Then if the judge takes 2 or 3 months to settle it, it's not 2 or 3 months after 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
That's a policy issue I try to implement, but we've been, I don't know, building people. But that's not because the judge, it's because some of these cases, they're going back to, I think the person on Evans Street.
2009.
Oh, thank you.
I was back that
Yeah,
far.
but the complaint wasn't filed till maybe 6 months before the trial. I then prosecuted it successfully, and it's apparently successful. So I mean, you need I think everybody can get where they want to go if we just have a system. I mean, if Amherst changed their code to put that in there, then that's a different analysis if that's what you want to do. We don't have that thing. And I'm not so certain, if somebody reviews it, if that's the appropriate use of the
Oh, yeah,
search.
that wasn't.
But that's a different issue I haven't really researched. We don't have that, so it doesn't really.
This guy's been stashed.
I mean, if the car is gone now, apparently the system
First time
is
for that.
prompting this gentleman to do what he was supposed to do at work, but I like to plan for the next time, so it's more smooth.
But there's still a car there that's unregistered.
No, they're gone. I didn't know that either.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, well, that settles the immediate.
On which one? So the one, the
But
one we're
I think that. there
currently
needs to
talking
be-
about, that car's been removed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There needs to be some discussion between us and the town as to whether we can continue with our code the way it is, or if we need to tweak our code. I agree with you about the search warrant.
Yeah.
I think that's a CYA move,
Mm-hmm.
you know. There's no question about it, either for liability purposes or something, but that isn't done because you have to have a search warrant going on everybody's property. We know that's not true because we go on people's property with appropriate notice to do things like cut lawns and things like that, when we have, you know. when we're
But
supposed to
that's a
do it.
little different than removing someone's property, cutting the grass.
True,
Yeah,
true.
It's like the apples and oranges.
let me ask you this, when, is part of the search warrant, in part be to determine if the car is in fact abandoned?
In the particular case that was presented to me, the reason I'm here, they knew it was abandoned.
Who's they?
The Amherst Town Inspector knew it was an abandoned car. At that moment, they could write whatever violation they wanted to write. There's no need for a search.
Being a semi-devil's advocate here, though, I mean, just because it doesn't have the proper stickers or even tags on it, it doesn't mean that it's not registered.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
It's got
You have
a
to display
registration.
And no license plate either.
No, that's a separate fine for not having the proper tags and the proper plates on it. It could be registered in the system.
Any car that's registered needs to display the registration.
So
He
it's-
writes down the
So it
registration number.
is, that is then
It's
considered
immediately illegal.
unregistered,
It's not
even
in the
if it
system.
is registered in the system.
No, if it's registered in the system, then it's registered.
But
You
you
can
can,
have-
you can have an unregistered vehicle if it's garage,
Yes.
or if it's got a car cover on it, then how do you know that it's abandoned?
What I'm saying is, if, like, say if it had no plates on it, somebody put the plates on it, but did register, it has everything up to date in the system, except for the fact that the registration sticker isn't on the window and the plates aren't on it. That, I'm just saying, that may be why they want that coverage with a search warrant, because the police would have to come onto the property to determine it, I mean, or is the building department determine?
The building department would just have to write down the VIN number, and then you would just run it at the
It's easy,
DMV.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
They
really,
can do that?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
very
Okay.
easy.
Well,
I believe in this case, the gentleman
I'm just
actually
trying to
told him it
find
was
out.
abandoned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
he just told him.
I'm just trying to find the reasons why the authority needed.
I believe to avoid any civil liability if they took the wrong car or they went on somebody's property. That is why. You know, I'm here because I don't want to promote something I think is unconstitutional. So, you know, everybody's trying to do the right thing. And, right, you know, it's a very clever approach to removing cars, but, you know, where's your day in court? I mean, they're you know, just because some village prosecutor hands something to a judge saying abandoned, there's really no adjudication there. And that's not what search warrants are about. If you want to authorize the Department of DPW to go take an abandoned car, that's great. But let's get a determination that it's abandoned. You go in front of the judge, you're fined X, you have 10 days to remove your car. And then if you don't, then we're going to send DPW to come and get it. And also, this doesn't address all the trash issue.
Well,
This just gets
this-
a car, yeah, but I think you're trying to clean up two things. I don't know what they do in
Well,
Amherst, if they come in, but why don't you have one thing in the code that says, you know, then they can come take the other bad stuff that nobody wants to look at. I've been doing this, I don't know, a long time, 20 years maybe. I think this is the second car case, third car case. Now, when I talk to the Amherst attorney, they get like 40 of these a month. It's a different environment. It's just, and listen, I feel for them, but I mean, here we've had two maybe that have come to my attention, if I,
Right.
and I could have
And it
sworn.
was.
Less than
and
five.
unfortunately, it was right out of the gate.
Yeah, that was right, so you're right, so there's three.
It's like,
But this guy removed his car with the proper motivation. I mean, I don't,
how did, didn't the one on, was it Hillside? Remember that?
that's right,
Yep,
that guy, thank you.
So that
that took a while.
That turned into,
Who ended up
they didn't
removing the car?
remove that, we removed.
We removed it, yeah.
We,
The village.
Well, the government or whatever, it was, I don't
All
know.
tow
Who
truck
removed-
or-
who
I wasn't involved with the removal of it.
I don't
It was
know.
government-
Somehow-
it was
What
governmental
department- I mean, the
procedure,
village-
or
Police.
that, it wasn't
The
voluntary.
village removed it.
But what do you mean the village?
The police did.
Which,
Probably
which
called the tow truck
office?
place and-
They contacted a towing company.
The village
The
did,
DPW.
or the police?
The police did. 'Cause I was not involved in removing it specifically. I mean, I was around when the whole discussion was going.
When did that happen?
I was pretty raw, maybe like
14.
6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Maybe that was before they,
That was still working.
maybe that was before they insisted on having a search warrant. Who knows?
The interesting
Because they
provision,
just added that language. Amherst just added that language about a search warrant. I'm assuming, I don't, that chapter of their code, which is otherwise identical to the Village of Williamsville's, but for the reference to the search warrant, was amended in April of 2022. I'm almost certain that means they amended it in April 2022 to add that search warrant language. So I don't know what prompted that. I think it was, that's the conclusion, that was the advice that
their attorney.
the town attorney's office gave the town board.
Look at the code, file paperwork first, get the process going, and then by the time it gets to the judge, we'll
It shouldn't take us.
It won't be 2 years, you know, I agree.
They can order it to be towed away.
And the fine will already be there. The motivation will be there.
Yeah, right.
Those fines, yeah, I mean,
Either a huge fine or get rid of it.
Well, these fines, I mean, that's one thing that
I know.
we might want to consider is making the fine bigger.
$100.
It's $100.
A day or?
It doesn't say that. It
It
says a
doesn't
violation
say
of this section shall be punishable by a fine not exceeding $100
$100.
I think we need to add a
per
day.
day.
per day. Right, but that's not what it says.
That's not what it
Well,
says.
I treated it as a continuing
Yeah.
violation, so it's a violation day one, but if you want to clear that up, it adds up pretty quickly.
Well, a day, if it's
Oh,
per day, yeah.
Yeah,
If it's not per day.
it's astounding.
That's some change. The other thing in here, frankly, that I've never looked at this, but there's another provision here that says if when we remove them, if the abandoned vehicle is hereinafter defined at the time of the abandonment has no number fixed to it, is of a wholesale value taking into consideration the condition of the vehicle, $100 or less. I don't know who determines that. Oh, such a value to be established by a person to be designated by the code enforcement officer for such purpose. Title shall immediately vest in the village of Williamsville. And then it authorizes the village to sell it and keep that portion of the proceeds that covers the village's costs, basically, and hold the rest of it for a period of 5 years. And if not claimed within the 5-year period, then the village keeps it.
Well, you're not gonna store a junk car for 5 years.
No, you don't store the car for 5 years. You gotta hold on to the proceeds. So say
Okay.
there's a determination that the vehicle's worth less than $100, which I can't, these days, anything's worth $100. One tire probably.
The script is
Yeah.
$100.
So I don't even know how applicable that is. But then say it sells at auction for $1,000, the village would be able to keep the portion that it basically covers its cost, and then would have to hold on to the rest of the money in some sort of escrow account for 5 years.
Well, since it's not an imminent issue,
No,
a
it's,
second, maybe
No.
we should have you come up with some kind of language chip that would,
well, I think maybe, and Tom did forward me, I just haven't had a chance to really review it yet, what I think Ann sent him. Well, I'll take a look at it, especially since we can see, I mean, and I don't know if Tom, I mean, they're citing, in their code, they cite specifically a specific section of the criminal procedure law, so that's one place to start, I guess. Take a look at it, see if it appears to authorize what they're doing.
I don't mean to sound like we're growing up. Somebody lets you on the property,
You know,
you can't use this system. So my thought would be, people are gonna let you on the property, maybe we should design a system
right,
to whatever. And then if they let you on the property, then you have enough, if you go in there and it's exigent, they can just cite you. I don't.
yeah, but even, but both, I assume many, this is often the case in the municipal code. Municipalities just copy each other's and so this may just be a pretty standard abandoned vehicle chapter. that both towns, both municipalities have, again, with the town having recently amended theirs for the search warrant issue, but all of them, or both of them, you know, to look at, don't, that is what's interesting, because unlike most violations in our code, there's actually really no reference here to going to court. It basically says we can go in there and remove it. And I share Tom's concern about whether or not that's constitutional without some sort of due process.
Maybe we should take a look at the code of a couple other villages and see what they've
Yeah.
got. I think that's probably the way it goes. Because this is not.
I have to say, and I'll have to come, we're looking at the history, that I just don't have any recollection of this. But the village adopted this code. I can go look back and look at the history in 2014, so I was here. I would have been the village attorney at the time we adopted this. I don't know what was there before. I'll look, I'm gonna have to do a little digging on this. I definitely didn't draft this, I'm sure we just took this from somewhere.
Okay. We can help Ann, we're working on it,
Yes,
and Chip will be working on it.
Yeah.
We'll go forward from there.
Who's Ann?
and she's a deputy town attorney, or was,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I think maybe she just
She wrote,
retired, like last week or something, or a couple weeks ago.
but this gentleman, the car is not there because I received yet another email from the town building inspector, so the car is not there.
Yeah, well, that's obviously.
But we appreciate you coming in.
So if you guys need anything, I'm willing to help in any way I can.
To go.
It seems pretty straightforward.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
You guys have fun. Thank
Seeing
you.
ya.
Yep, good seeing you.
Appreciate
Yep, take care.
Okay, so Chief Vogel's here tonight, and he had mentioned, he wanted to discuss about the striping, in the back lot. I think we talked about that a few meetings ago.
Yep.
So what was, I know that was going to traffic and safety. I feel like there was a discussion that was had.
Yeah,
No, that was okay. That was.
Approved.
Yeah, it was
yes,
approved.
Okay,
It was
We
a
were-
matter of, it
Almost a year
turned
ago.
into weather.
Yeah, we were waiting for it to
Yeah.
be seal coated
Yeah.
again, and then I'm taking delivery of a striping machine this week, so we actually had the
Right.
wherewithal to do it. And
We were doing the diagonal striping.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that they couldn't.
To the
block
edge.
one
Yeah.
entrance.
Yeah, that's the only reason I brought it up. A couple of guys,
Especially
couple of my
Thursday
guys,
nights.
yeah, have come up. Well, it's not even Thursday night, so you get a busy like weekend, Friday, Saturday nights with everybody going down to the establishments.
Or a big race back in the, I don't know,
Yeah.
Park or something, yeah.
We need to keep that area open, so that we can get our ladder truck in and out. Because if we try to go through a full parking lot, we don't want to accidentally flip a vehicle trying to make that turn. So it's a long way.
So,
So
you know, it's.
if we can come through that crosshatch area, then it's not an
No,
issue.
it's
But
a little
okay,
bit-
so you're saying, Ben, it's gonna get done then? It's just
Yeah.
we haven't, weather and timing and striping machines and all that fun stuff, so.
awesome, I appreciate it.
it's on the list.
All right,
Okay,
great.
speaking of striping, while I have you here, I want to talk about South Cayuga. I know striping needs to be done on the street,
Yes.
so if you can give an update on that. And then also, I know I sent a copy of Chief Vogel's letter regarding parking on one side of South Cayuga. So while he's here, I know this was sent, because I sent it to the Traffic and Safety Committee, and I copied all of you on it as well. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about that letter? And, what is our what are we doing as far as striping? Are we striping it regularly? Are we striping for
Yeah.
parking when the time comes?
Yeah, we're,
Just regular?
Status quo.
Parking on
Yeah.
South Cuba.
nothing's changing.
Nothing's changed.
Okay, so it's just gonna be striping regularly? Okay,
Are we
Is
gonna
there-
do fog lines though?
Yeah. There were and there will be fog lines again. Yes.
Can we squeeze them in a little bit more?
Sure we can.
Or was it,
Do an 11-foot lane versus a 12-foot lane?
the wide lane is what causes the speed?
Yeah, so narrow it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
We can.
Yeah, I think it's really.
I mean,
well
we could
done.
actually get away with 10. I mean, that's a lot, but it also kind of creates a pseudo, should say,
Evil.
like,
Yeah.
bike lane.
It's all traffic
Just
calming.
paint.
It works.
It's just
Really
paint.
works.
You guys tell me to do it at 10 feet, we'll do it at 10 feet.
Well, in the fog lines and the double yellow be done have to be done at the same time?
Yes. Yeah. We're not gonna try to get accent back here twice.
No, I
Trust me.
didn't know.
When they're here, we're
I
gonna
didn't know.
do
Try to
it.
get it one time.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Can we agree to that then? I mean, 10 foot is the 30-mile-an-hour lane, right? I mean, nobody's gonna necessarily stay to the left of the fog line, but it will squeeze the lanes down and it does change the geometry.
Yeah, I
of the
have
road.
I don't have an issue with that. I don't see any.
I'm good with it.
Does that make a bike lane or?
No,
Not
no,
at all.
it's not,
No.
no, it's
We
not.
kicked all this, there's
It's
like,
not enough for a
South
bike
Cayuga
lane.
was like 2 feet.
Too shy.
narrow,
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Right, it's been
Can
nice.
we, are we, because I know there are, you know, a lot of people on the street who would like parking on there for, you know, and have get-togethers and things. So I know this discussion came up a few years ago, and I feel like I kind of had the same conversation, Chief Madigan, about parking and the same thing you dropped in your letter. But yet, that same discussion then came up to traffic and safety again. So I think that it would maybe be good to somehow maybe convey to traffic and safety or go on record that, you know, we seem to keep having the same discussions over and over. And when it's regarding safety, I feel like the safety 4 years ago doesn't change the safety factor today. So that, I know there was a push, I know Bill Tyne wants to see parking, Dan Ryder wants to see parking.
Well, that was all
So
for
I
calming
just-
measures, really more than anything. Because if you add parking
Oh,
on a
and
very
I
busy
understand
street.
that,
No,
but for like the width and
Right.
being, even after they saw the letter from the fire department, there was still like this kind of,
There was
wow, I feel
discussion.
like to
Well,
see
there
that,
was,
so
there
I
was
just.
that letter, which was understandable because it is the only route out
83?
Right.
for
When was
that area.
Remove it.
But,
16, 17?
the reason that we didn't want to do parking on the west
I just
side
don't remember that.
was because
I feel like that
moving it over
What's
to
happened?
the
It took,
And it's
east,
probably just borrowed
those
from Amherst.
receivers on that side
Yeah.
they needed too much work for cars to be traveling that close to those.
There's one receiver on each side. There's one on the east,
I know,
there's
but
one
the,
on the
but the
west.
receivers on the east side were low, right?
and they
Wasn't it?
still are, yeah.
And they still are, so that was part of the safety concern.
And I'm just suggesting that we convey that to traffic and safety so they can spend their time having discussions and emailing about things that might actually affect change. So that's all I'm saying. So as long as we're good and we got a striping plan, I think we're good with it and.
Yeah, I mean, squeezing it down is one thing, and shifting it over, it didn't really work, there wasn't enough room.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw my little tactical urbanism when I painted out lines on Cayuga
I saw.
while it was milled to experiment with
No,
what it
because
felt
as soon
like.
as you emailed me, it was like they literally came right down.
Yeah, the next day they paid,
Like,
There were
yeah.
little markers everywhere. I went and
Yeah,
looked.
so,
That was dicey. I mean, you
No, it
wouldn't be
makes
able to make
sense
the
then. Thank
turn
you for that.
without entering into the oncoming lane of traffic.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was
we-
that tight.
I mean, we sort of discovered that it was.
When we did that years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was just how much were we gonna gain?
Yeah.
And how much work would have had to have been done to the road altogether with the receivers and all that, I mean, so.
It's just not big enough.
Right.
okay.
You know,
Right.
I
You
have
have
one
bigger trucks now,
question
too.
though. Chief Vogel, you know, there's parking on Evans. Did you know that?
Yes.
Do you think that's a good idea?
Not particularly, no, but Evans is a little bit, it
Wider.
seems to be a little bit wider.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not sure. if it is.
Evans is, not where you go from Main Street to SJ. It's very narrow.
Yeah, it's.
And all
that's-
that is permitted
And then it,
parking.
and then it opens.
And then it opens up.
We had I'll be honest with you, we had some of the same problem on Evans and on big nights like Thursday, you know, music on Main. Mill Street is a major problem for us.
Yeah,
We know that ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we
Right.
try to
Avoid
avoid
Mill
it by
Street.
going Evans.
Right,
But then you're also cutting in response time from our station too.
right. Well, the ambulances always take Evans to go to the hospital. That's their direct route.
Yes,
Oh,
because
corner.
that's
Yeah.
also, the ambulances stay over there, two reasons. One, because of the turns, you don't want to put
Right.
station. Number two, is they have a base station on it,
Correct.
so that's where they,
I can't imagine anyone parking on Evans, like without
Well,
fearing they're gonna get
sometimes
rear-ended.
they don't.
Nobody
No,
does
I know,
because.
well, that's what I mean, because
But
it's,
it's
but,
but it's legal.
But you,
Yeah, I know.
it's legal.
You can.
right,
And
but
we-
what,
you know,
to his point though, that might be something that the board wants to look at, is
Well, we
not
should
having,
look at
you
County
know,
road. Do we have any-
We prohibited from Maine
Well,
to
it is a
Eagle.
county road, I mean, we
on
can
the
make
east
a
side.
recommendation, and I think a letter from the fire department would be very, weighted in that, just stating that, look, this is like a main artery, not just for you guys, but for
I
ambulances
think
and
we could do
hospital,
that.
and,
We should. do
Yeah.
But it's not an issue.
But it-
That's the
It
thing.
will be with the bloker.
well, it will
No,
be,
no,
yeah.
no.
Yes, it will certainly be,
Yes,
yes.
I mean, that's something you're gonna be very.
Yeah, yeah.
Or,
So,
yeah, because they're
I'd like to
taking-
nip that in the
they're
bud
taking
before
most
it is
of
a
the park-
problem.
The current parking for Boca, I believe, is being eliminated. Yeah, that was my understanding on the plans, I haven't seen it myself.
No, 90.
What's that? Oh, no, they have less parking. They actually receive the variance for less parking than they actually is necessary. But they had all these different formulas that they figured out with different properties that are owned by People Inc. And they said, oh no, it'll still be plenty. And there's still a little bit of green space they could utilize to make the parking, expand the parking. But my thought is if you have apartments, entrances that face Evans, people will park on Evans to access their apartments. Why wouldn't they? Carry their groceries, whatever they want to do. So I'd like to nip that in the bud and actually not have parking on that stretch, just for safety reasons.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, well, I'm glad you're here, thank you.
Okay,
Anything
no
else for the chief before he
Anything
leaves, or?
else?
No, that's,
Thank you.
my guys are pretty happy, so. And that makes me happy, so. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Correspondence, I put 2636 California driveway apron on here. I think we have that resolved, but just a quick recap on that. The individual who spoke, who called my office about it, and I know he also spoke with Judy, was concerned about some, I'll call it like wear and tear on the driveway apron in front of his apartments at 2636 California. And I know Ben went over and took a look at it, and we just determined that in go-arounds and us speaking with him on different occasions, Judy finally said to him if he has a complaint, he's gonna need to just submit a written complaint to the village for our record, and then at that point, we would take it, into consideration perhaps, and
And so this what came from, he was claiming that we had done
he
that.
was claiming
at one
that
time.
we had redone it, and it was when Brian Copel was mayor, and we were taking back right-of-ways from Blacktop to make them more green by,
And this is on the east side of.
Yes.
Yes.
So that area wasn't touched, I know that.
That's, I'm just.
You could see where it was, the driveway opening was shortened, like
No,
if
that's
we
the other side,
go on,
that's the west.
Google Maps, you could definitely see the driveway was wider than it is now.
But there was also, to the point, Judy had made a point, you could tell it was recently, the driveway itself, the parking lot, I should say, was recently repaved with blacktop. And so it looked to be perhaps maybe that when they did that area, the parking lot, they also did that entrance as well, with blacktop. So, it's hard to say though.
That's the only thing I could find.
Did we ever get a written complaint?
No,
from-
not yet.
Okay, so we've asked him to put down a complaint in writing because it's really just been phone calls. And that way there's an official record. And if there's something we need to do
Did he
at
send
that
you that?
point.
No, I went over there and I took it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's deteriorating. It's starting to
25,
kind of
26
sink a little, he
degrees.
said, crack,
Buildings,
so.
and this is the entrance.
Show me where that is.
See that cracking?
Oh.
It's behind,
So he thinks that
Yeah.
we should fix theirs.
Yeah, I talked to you about
Behind,
that.
behind Newbit, where Newbit used to be.
No. There's no warranty
So
Right.
I think,
if we did anything.
we're gonna, our next steps on that, we're just gonna wait for him to submit a complaint.
Yeah.
And we'll take a look at it once it's in writing, what he details, because I know you had conversations with him, I had a conversation with him. Ben has not, so I just wanna have something in writing.
Yeah, I went and looked at it, cause I couldn't, the way he was explaining it to me, it sounded like it was in the center of his parking lot.
Yeah.
But it's the approach, the center of the approach, and like you said, it looked like the whole thing had been repaved
Yeah, it looked like the whole thing is.
recently.
And we don't really touch private, aprons, entrances,
We can help with it.
right? So, all right, so that's why that's on there, and let's just wait until we get a written complaint, you know, in there, so. Any other correspondence?
Well, just all the
I
different
know, I put a couple
correspondence.
things about Natalie and.
No, the rat problem
okay.
suddenly.
Yeah, well, we can.
I received a couple, well, the one we all shared we received from Eagle House.
Yes.
Right,
And then I received one directly from Cheesy Chick. Anybody else get that one?
yeah, I got that.
I did not.
Oh, did you get that one from Cheesy Chick? She also complained that suddenly there's a rat issue. And this seemed to suddenly occur when, in our minutes through the Glen Park Joint Board, we had decided to remove the 2 little rat traps that were near the shed that no longer exists. And as a matter of fact, those traps are still there, so they haven't even been removed. And since those minutes, and people have become aware that 2 rat traps have been removed, we have a massive rat problem on Main Street. And a lot of it, they quote unquote think is from the park. Well, I can assure them, there are no rats in Glen Park whatsoever. Ben can attest
I
to
got
that.
an email from the WBA today, that went out to the entire membership saying that we have rodent issues. And I responded to the entire membership and I said, I intend to address it at the meeting next Wednesday. However, since most people don't attend those meetings, rats are looking for food. And it has come to the village's attention that there are some businesses who are cleaning food debris and grease traps into the creek. And I didn't mention any names. And that the only place rats go is where they have food. So I said there needs to be more diligence about dropped food on patios now that we're doing outdoor dining. And they go after bird feeders, they go after dumpsters,
Feces,
unsecured garbage
They go after
containers.
dog fees.
dog poop.
Dog food,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, but that, I don't think that's much
Well,
on the
but they,
patios.
no.
Walk Main Street and you'll see a lot of dog poop on Main Street on the sidewalks.
Well, that's residents, that's not that.
The rats will eat that.
Yeah, they will. They're attracted to it.
So I did address that today with WBA and I will again next week at their meeting.
Yeah, it's really, the restaurants, they've really just all that cool weather.
I know.
And clean their properties, and that's it. I mean, their rats are coming to.
I can tell you right now, one of
I
the,
mean-
one of the solutions is to force them into dumpsters, with dumpsters, instead of all these totes.
Yep.
That's, because that's.
You mean the big restaurants?
Well, how many totes does one get?
Some
you
of them
know,
have quite a few.
And it, if you wanna talk safety issues, try and go down Main Street when the garbage trucks are trying to empty 10 totes in front of some place. Where most places, the restaurants have dumpsters. And it's all in one thing. That contributes to it.
We do a lot more restaurants,
We do,
yeah. You Probably doubled your population of restaurants in the last 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, for example, along Spring Street, I mean, there are complaints that, people who go outside and eat and drink, they leave their garbage outside. And I know that for a fact, because the people who own the mills are always cleaning up after those
Right.
restaurants who are along Spring Street. So,
Doesn't the county do abatement? If you have an
For
issue-
residential.
For only
For residential.
yeah, no, this is something that Mary, I'm sure you'll handle it. And,
Yeah. And I think your answer was great, what you just, everything you just said about the approach, so I think that that's it.
Yeah, we'll continue on with the,
I support that fully, what you just said,
Same old
so.
story.
yeah.
All right.
okay.
Thanks, Mary.
Does anybody know why the Strawberry Festival moved up to main transit? It's always been here on Island Park.
I don't know, this is the first I heard about it.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Does anybody know
Doesn't make
why?
any
Main
sense.
transit.
A fire hall, the big area behind
They've
it.
been back on the island
Oh,
since they've
yeah.
been doing this for 30, 40 years.
Did they even come to us and ask?
This year, no.
No.
The only thing I can think of is, we increased the rate for them, and they weren't happy about that last year. We kept the rate until this year. We told them that this year they would have to increase, and they never came back this year.
What did we increase it to from?
I wanna say, cause it's an all island, $500, where before they were paying $250 for the pavilion and $75 for the small shelter. That's how they were getting around it, but I wanna say the reorg 2019 maybe is when, or 20, must have been 2019, that they wanted everybody to follow the same payment schedule, so nobody, this one's paying
Anybody
100,
getting
this
less
one's,
than, anybody
every-
paying
should
less
be
than anybody else, it
consistent.
should have been consistent.
and then COVID hit. So
Right,
then
nothing.
I had sent out letters telling, at that time, we only had 3 that would do the all islands. And I explained to them that was what was going on and that, the first year we would same as what was before. So then COVID hit, so then after we started renting again, I just let them have the same rate as they had before, since they either didn't get the letters or forgot about the letters or. So I remember last year he came in and I said, next year we have to raise it. But they never called or anything this year, so.
Who was he?
I don't recall his name.
That's too bad, because I don't think they'll get the attendance like they do here, because people walk to it, it's a wonderful event. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that too. It's sort of been a.
I'll come back next year.
Yeah, village
So
favorite.
we sort, because this has been the whole island rental fee and all that, so we discussed how our many times at this point, right? So, it's unfortunate, it's part of, way part of the growing pains, because we couldn't
I just,
And,
I didn't know if anybody
and
heard
the,
anything.
the personnel hours involved in the whole island rental.
They'll probably be back. I'd be surprised.
Okay, any other correspondence? I know, I'm just, that South Lawn resident concern about South Lawn Park safety. I talked to Ben about it. She was concerned that if you were driving straight down Milton towards the park, there's
Yeah.
some boulders there. And we talked about putting reflectors on those and maybe adding some other type of reflective device, so.
Yep.
So I think that's addressed, but that was after that, so. And then, teledevelopment, we had an email from a resident, I believe Mr. Lasowski is here. And, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Was the concern was the connecting sidewalks, right?
Many concerns.
Right.
Yes, so, so I did reach out to, Tim Masters about this. Because he is, essentially was involved throughout the entire process of the Tally development. And, I think that one of the questions was, there was supposed to be a sidewalk connecting California Drive to the Lehigh Trail between the existing yellow residential home and the new townhomes that are being built. And there's an opening there now, and Ben, you can jump in if you know anything. There's an opening, it looks like maybe there's gonna be a sidewalk carved from the street to the trail, because there's actual ground and grass taken out to look like, but nothing has been laid yet over there. His only comment on it, Tim Masters' comment, was that it is, that property, just remember, is still owned by Natali Development. And it doesn't necessarily, because there's a sidewalk there, make it a public park. So I don't know what that really means, because if it was part of the planning board's agreement and that sidewalk was drawn in there for the benefit of the community and the residents and connectivity, I don't really know how that's gonna play out, but that was just something that he mentioned to me in an email, so.
Well, they agreed to do it.
I know they did, right, I
So
know.
we just can't renege on it now.
Well,
So
I'm just stating.
their attorney called me a few days ago expressing concern about the potential legal liability that they would face by this. And he said this came up in some other development of his, and he was advising against agreeing to that. And I told him I didn't have any of the documents in front of me, but my understanding and recollection is that was part of the site plan approval, and they agreed to it. And if they have liability, they can do one of two things. They can seek to have that site plan modified if they want, so they can get it. Or if they're concerned about it, they can dedicate that strip of property to the village. They are concerned about that. That was as far as our conversation went.
Okay.
And you left it that he's gonna get back to you after he talks to,
I did tell him I would try to confirm that it was, in fact, because this was how many years ago now, I don't know that was part of the approved site plan, and that they had agreed. That was my recollection, but,
This is between
I didn't have the resolution.
It's
or the-
between,
141 and 149, the first time or the second?
It's right next to, it's between those
the new townhouse,
townhouses under construction, that like side by side,
which would be like on
The
the
duplex.
east
the
side.
duplex,
of
basically, and then,
California.
and then
So as you're
that
coming
first
down
single family
California
home
Avenue,
next door.
there's like a yellow house here, and then there's
No.
townhouses that are built into
but that
towns.
benefits the
And if there's
townhomes
a-
across the street. They have access to
Yeah.
the walking trail as well.
It's actually in the minutes from 2018. It's very, it's forward that. It's in there.
Yeah, I got it right here.
So it
He
is
did
in
a
the
very
minutes.
thorough investigation.
So they can't just not,
They agreed.
No,
they
they
can't just
can't.
blow this off.
Applicants agreed to extend the sidewalk all the way through to connect with the Lehigh Trail.
Larry made a copy of it, it's right here. Yeah.
Okay, so we're waiting on a reply then
From the,
from,
Natalia's attorney.
Well, what's the date of that, Christine? So I
March
can-
5th, 2018.
I'm sorry?
Did you get a copy of the letter, Chad?
March
Here.
No, no.
Give it on mine. It has the pictures too.
because they were pretty quick to agree to it, I remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that really being a, oh, I'm not here. Back in the-
Are fully connected to the.
Can I-
the trail.
Yes, you can have it.
Thanks.
I'll make another copy.
Yeah, and they did a walkway pretty much not to it, but on the other side.
You did.
But they're on the north, well, northeast, like northwest side.
On our property.
On our right.
That's the one they weren't supposed to do, right?
They're more than happy to put liability on us, but they won't accept it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Larry, is that?
Might want to
answer your
mention that,
question?
Jim,
Yeah,
Yes.
because they did
Not
add
really,
that
'cause we're
walkway.
waiting to hear
And I don't know if
back,
that
so
was,
you get
was
the
that
gist
approved
of,
through the
I think,
planning
what-
board, that added walkway?
Like all three of them, there's like one,
As soon as we find out
there's three
more, we
walkways that I
can,
remember seeing on the plans.
Okay,
Make sure you know.
And the last one is between the existing private residents and the new private residents.
but this one's on our property, so.
Well, the one that's installed, yeah.
All right, so,
The
I
resident,
mean, they,
the owner of the
planning
condo
board
didn't want
approved
it.
it as that way, and they can't really come in and change it. I mean, so it's just a matter of, so. And now that, the town of Amherst is doing that enforcement, so, they would have a copy of the plan and they would be able to see that that was approved as such and should be enforced as such, so. Unless we hear differently from Natalia's attorney, I don't know what Chip said, I don't know.
Did I give you another paper from somebody else? Jet, was there another? Hold on.
no, no.
More lengthy one from
Any other
somebody else?
correspondence?
Is this?
This is from
related-
somebody
this is somebody
else, yeah, this is
Okay.
another, from another resident.
Okay,
Yeah. Is there another issues, more issues?
I don't know, what is this?
Well, I haven't shared this with anybody, these were just more issues, another resident came up with an Natalie about, remember the private property that, the fencing was removed and never
Yeah.
replaced, that, do you remember the gentleman? That who
Yes.
came, well, that's an issue
He's here
here.
tonight, actually, Jordan.
And these are other issues that another resident had written up. Now, I don't know if you want to add those to these, or we should discuss them.
They agreed to fix that
Fence?
And they haven't.
3.5, 4 years ago,
And the grading is off.
and they haven't yet, so we need to just let, I guess, code enforcement know that that's not followed through and they need to do it.
And I guess, but
As long as it's part of the approved
as long as it's
site
part of the
plan.
approved site plan, and I think that was the discussion,
The fence was.
Dan, that
That
I
was
don't know
my-
if that was on the approved site plan.
I don't know either.
What,
We have
fixing fences?
putting the fencing up between the property owners on California, the backyards and the development. There was I think there was some maybe verbal discussions of that, but,
Well, they encroached into their property, that was the problem.
well, that too, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, but what, to Chip's point, is that whatever is in the plan, in the site plan that was approved is essentially what the town is gonna be looking at and gonna need to be
I have a
enforcing.
feeling they didn't have
So-
permission to go into their property.
Okay, well.
That's a
trespass.
But
That's
the
not
That's a
us.
fencing-
private property dispute.
the fencing could
Okay,
be the issue.
So let's stop there, that's a private property dispute. So that would need to be something that the private
Right.
property
Yeah,
owner would
comes
need to
back.
take up.
Yeah.
So what we can address though, as a board, is the fencing issue. But what I'm saying is that if it's not in the site plan, it's gonna be very hard for the town to enforce it.
But I believe that, Bobby Correo agreed to it.
Did he agree to it
in a
verbally
meeting.
or, oh, in a meeting, okay, well, I don't know, I mean, how do
And
you,
it was, and I wanna say it was a
Pull
board
that up.
meeting,
a work
a
session?
work session.
Do we have that in minutes
I
somewhere?
don't know, but I remember this being a conversation in one of these meetings, in one of these rooms.
And my guess is it's before meetings.
Jordan, you
were
might be able
recorded.
to.
Right.
Come on
Oh,
up.
there you are.
Oh my God, speaking of the devil, I didn't know you were sitting there. Sorry. Here he is. You know he was here?
Okay,
I said
well, there we
Jordan.
go.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
he was
oh,
here.
yeah, I said he was
It's Jordan.
the one.
I didn't realize you were sitting there.
So we responded as all the neighbors that we wanted a fence and the shrubs, because they offer both options.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. There you
Signed
go.
letter.
Covering the cost
See?
of,
It's on their letterhead, it's their letter to us.
All right, but then that's still,
That's
that's a,
your issue with them.
right, I don't know how we can enforce a letter from them to
The residents.
the residents.
So that could be a that could be a private issue as well, unless there's something in the building plan or in the site plan that is approved by the planning board.
I believe didn't there have to be, screening though?
But there was an existing fence.
Wait, Jordan, what is that?
Is that
I
a
don't
correct?
wanna
Is that a
like,
correct?
I don't wanna take us off course
No,
here.
no, I just want
There's your rat problem.
Unsecured dumpster.
Is that it? DeBolio?
Yeah, like,
Flopping it
their dumpsters are overflowing 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah, too, yeah. They're supposed to have.
That's a current.
Dumpsters?
That's today.
Or just
Today.
On
one.
my way here.
No. Natalie's property, how many dumpsters do they have?
I don't know.
They have.
Again,
We need a site plan.
we have a site plan.
You need to look at a site plan. So, I mean, we can't talk about any of that.
There's your site plan with the
to.
sidewalk in it that Larry's talking about, that doesn't have the sidewalk that they put in on Williamsville's property. There's your site plan, it's still on their website. You can go on their website today and find it.
Well, here's I've got a site plan. You wanna look at this?
Is that the approved
Is that
site?
the approved site plan?
Yeah, Tim said it's gonna be It's hard to read.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might be time for
Put your
an
glasses on.
old fashioned tally meeting.
Yeah, I
But you
agree.
can see
Thank
there is a
you.
sidewalk
Dan,
between the
I
yellow.
totally agree.
Here, I think,
It's time, because you know what?
so this is, you can see there's a
Oh, I
sidewalk.
can see
Well,
the sidewalk, but what are these?
It's Sally, we haven't done it before.
Let's see, here's.
We
what
seem to have a meeting with them like once every 6 months there for a little while.
No, no.
Kind of
No, okay, no,
a lot of
These
lot
are,
of
this is
out.
back.
I'm sorry, right here.
Because they're getting close
So-
to being completely done here, and you know what?
Well, they've already got their CO.
Not
I
for
know, but
one,
they-
they're
but-
one building, they're still using it for one.
But if,
Yeah.
I bet if we went down.
Sure,
a
this, that's about, I
Which-
can't, and I can't access
Everything
it.
that was
from
approved,
my
Yeah.
everything was supposed to be in that plan, we find quite the list. And we can also lean on
You wanna keep a
the
copy of that, or
letters.
am I to just
I
tear
mean,
it
Chip
out?
said we
I'll
can't
take
force
it.
them, but we could certainly talk to them.
Can I see that, Tim?
You told our residents that you
Chip?
would pay for this. So, yeah, we should plan on, good old fashioned tally.
I mean, it's time.
Excuse me,
Oh, there you
Same as
go.
everybody else.
Yeah.
absolutely.
In that email that I sent you about the fencing and stuff, it is in black and white that part of the planning board, that there would be fencing and that they should meet with the neighbors to determine the fine.
That letter is in support of what you referenced.
So that letter's in response to
To what
that.
he
The
refers
planning
to.
board is
Okay,
said they gotta do fencing
Okay,
around the whole, everything. And it's in the notes that I sent you.
okay.
okay. Did you send that to Chip as well?
I just
No.
gave him, that's from, that's
No,
what
but
I
I've got
gave
it
him.
now.
I gave
Okay.
him.
You want an e-copy of it?
I'll take a look, pardon me? I
You
have
want
it.
an email of it?
I
Sure,
gave him a copy,
but this is fine.
the hard copy, he has it.
Okay. All right, so, any other thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah.
Okay,
This is
so
fine.
while we're talking about planning board, I do have recent resignation of Kevin Lester from the planning board. I gave all of you a copy of that.
Yeah, he asked that we hold that until, June 30th. There wasn't supposed to be a meeting June 5th, and he attended as a member.
Okay.
So he asked that night if we can just hold that to June 30th.
Oh, sure, okay, that's fine.
That's
Okay.
because he was
Yeah,
part of that
changed, right.
discussion and he wanted to stay on it till the
Okay.
end of the year.
All right, so obviously at reorg, then you'll have two vacancies you'll need to fill. It's Kevin Lester's and vacancy currently. All right. That's all I have. Dan?
The building department, and I saw your email about the, public hearing, although we don't need it, I don't see, a problem with at least, calling for one, but I do want to vote on this next meeting, for the building, or, I'm sorry, for the planning department. For the building department, I'd like to move on that as soon as, I'd like to move on that
For the building
for
department.
the building department.
Do that tonight, right?
The planning department, we do not have the final tweak.
Yeah, I was gonna.
I am yeah, it is, apparently it was it went back to their office for review. And I don't know if.
Really, I've never seen,
I've never
Okay,
seen
so
it.
it's in their,
it's still within internal review.
But nothing-
yes,
It does not consent to us.
exactly, but it's one
Planning.
step
Planning.
for planning, it's one step away from coming over here.
What the town attorney told me is it was Dan Howard was still reviewing it, and then it was gonna go to Mark, the town attorney, to review, and then he was gonna send it to me.
Perfect,
That we discussed, we had that conversation last Thursday or Friday.
yes, okay, excellent.
Does that include the fee? Did we decide on that?
Again, I haven't seen,
The fee thing,
No,
remember?
planning department, the only fee tied to that, and it's essentially, it's like in between, right, with the zoning enforcement, or I was mixed with the ZEO, the zoning enforcement, there's a stipend involved there for $2,600 a year. Because that's outside of
What we currently pay.
what we currently pay for, through our taxes.
That's the perfect.
And
That's the
outside.
planning. That's the planning.
Well, right,
Right.
it's like, so that's but with building department, no, or with planning.
Okay, so I think.
Good months. Planning department, there's no. Building department, that's the other one.
That's the one we hadn't
Separate.
decided on, right?
Yeah, so why are we, I guess, here's my concern, which I wrote in the email. I haven't seen any figures of what it's gonna cost us to move the building department essentially over to the town. So other than the $20,000 annual lump sum payment.
We didn't decide on that yet.
No, well, I know, but
Yeah.
this is the
Right.
agreement that he wants to vote on
We were
tonight.
still,
So what I'm saying is, there's gotta be, is it just 20,000 a year?
I don't know.
20,000 a year.
But, and are there any other
But
additional
there's
fees?
hourly rates for.
There's an hourly rate.
Okay, but what are those? I haven't seen any of that. Those
Judy, what
fees?
was that again?
They vary depending on the employee.
Yeah, depends on the employee.
Okay.
Okay, cause I haven't seen any of that yet.
She had copies there, you sent them.
I don't have copies, the only thing I have copies of are the bills that they sent us for December and January. But I don't have a list of all of their employees and what their rates of pay are.
Because the town hasn't, have we gotten this from the town then? Okay, so that's one thing we should have, to see what potentially we're gonna be, you know, is this gonna be costing us more to have the building department run out of the town? Or is there a cost savings here? Like what's the, you know,
Or is it a wash?
yeah, or maybe it is a wash. But I guess.
I haven't been billed since January, so I mean, in January and December, it was very low, under $2,000. So.
Well, that's because in January, there's not
Right,
necessarily a lot of
right.
building permitting going on in the
Inspections or
middle of winter in
But
Buffalo.
they haven't sent anything since, they may have sent February too. I may have gotten February. But I think that they have not billed us because in the agreement, they're asking for 15,000 this year to cover March through December. So I think that's why they haven't billed us. That's the only thing I can think of.
Now, are we paying,
That's the prorated 20.
where,
I'm
are
sorry?
we paying,
Is that the prorated 20,000 a year?
Yes.
Right.
so we're gonna be paying for those, reasonable, like, not limited to mileage and current things like that. We're gonna also be picking up a portion of their health insurance and their FICA, or no?
No.
Yes.
No, I don't get, I thought it was
I
health
believe
insurance.
Not their benefits, just their FICA.
I'd have to go back
Okay,
and pull
so
the bill.
town, the cost of said services shall be reimbursed by the village to the town at applicable hourly rates, plus FICA, retirement, and insurance is what the contract says.
Right.
With the town, so we will be picking, in addition to the hourly rate, which I believe is built in half-hour
I
increments.
think it's work, I don't think it's like medical insurance and that kind of stuff.
Well, these are all questions, I guess, I'm just wondering, I don't think we
I'm
should
sorry.
rush this through without having a 100% grasp of how much it's gonna cost. Is it a wash? Is it excess? Are we getting a great deal here? We don't have any of those numbers to make a decision on this tonight. And I do think, because I realize in the past that we haven't, with intermunicipal agreements, we haven't held public hearings, but this is one that will, I will say, and I'll use the word dramatically affect village residents, because although we still have a window open here, all of the work and legwork is being done at the town with town employees, not village employees. So there's a difference there, because let's say that a resident has an issue with a building inspector that comes to their home. Let's just say they say something inappropriate, and I'm just hypothesizing here. So that resident then calls up the mayor or a trustee and files a complaint. Those are town employees, those are not village employees. So how is that whole scenario then dealt with? Is an arbitrator brought into the discussion? Is there, we don't even have any type of dispute, I'll call it dispute resolution in place for this type of an agreement. It's not like when we did an agreement, the one that I can remember, we shared a community development director, Maggie Hamilton. We split her time with the town of Amherst. So essentially, she was giving us so many hours of work, and then she was giving the town so many hours of work. So that's a different situation than what's going on here, because she was still an employee of the village for whatever it was, 15 hours a month. And then she was still an employee of the town. So there was a way to address any dispute resolution that could potentially arise. In this situation, I'd like to know maybe you've had those discussions, Dan, but I'd like to know what that looks like as a resident, because maybe someday I would have a dispute with a town building inspector, and I want to know what that process would look like for me as a village resident.
I don't see how we not do it at this point. We've all agreed.
Well, I'm not saying we
to
can
work
do it, but I'm just
towards
saying we need to hammer this out before we sign the
I can
agreement. That's
clarify
all.
one thing, look at number 4, it covers, it clearly states we're not responsible for what the town.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm looking at number 3, where it says services required.
I know what you're looking
Yeah,
at.
that's what I'm-
Already raised, plus
Yeah.
like return and insurance.
Yeah.
We just need clarification on what that is, like insurance, I don't know, maybe that was in there. It's mistakenly.
I do not. That, I handed that off to administration and attorneys, and, I'm just trying to put the right people together in the right room and put the village in the right situation.
Well, in order to know if it's the right situation though, we need to know, is it gonna be costing the village residents more for this? Is it gonna be costing less? Are the village residents
Well, I
gonna
thought
get it?
we agreed that, how could it be? I mean, you know, with the rates that, we talked about what we were getting billed so far, we were talking about that flat rate compared to what we were paying someone to try and do everything where in a lot of cases, nothing got done. And our biggest problem in this village administratively, I think, is property maintenance, being able to take care of property
Right,
maintenance
well,
issues.
you had the discussion and you didn't wanna listen to my suggestion, which was if we're already paying for the planning and we're doing a separate planning agreement, and that's already coming out of our taxes that we're paying to the town,
Right,
then because our code enforcement officer always had so much on his plate, I couldn't agree more with you on that. So if we're taking the planning portion away and giving it to the town, which we're essentially already paying in for, then why not look at what the cost would be for us, okay, if we hired our own code enforcement, just to do code enforcement, just for the 1 square mile of the village, what does that cost look like versus sub-cost or, less than maybe great cost of having the town do that. And as we discussed here tonight, the town code is different than the village code. We just had a discussion for half an hour about getting rid of a car that doesn't have a registration that's sitting in a driveway on Avenue.
Well, that's why we need
And-
to review the code.
Well, I understand
That
that.
car sat there for almost 20 years, and as soon as the town stepped in and went down there and did something about it, it was gone.
Why,
So
I can't
think
speak
it's
to
a
that.
Much
I'm-
more
That's exactly what
efficient
happened though.
process for the village.
When was the complaint
Pardon?
filed though? When was the complaint on the
Like
car?
3
that-
months ago, maybe?
Okay, so 3 months
Bang,
ago, so
bang.
it was a
In
complaint filed 20 years
We went
ago?
all the way to court.
Okay, well, I wasn't here in two
Nothing
thousand nine.
was enforced.
I wasn't here in
So-
2009. I realize it's
This is
upsetting
a
to you because it's on
very-
your street, but
It's a very well-planned,
Efficient.
efficient partnership.
then if it's an efficient
So-
partnership, I would ask to
It's
see the
working.
numbers, please. I would ask to see the numbers. No, you're saying it's working because it's on your
No,
street and it's
working
being addressed,
because
but I'm
already
asking,
Seen something
No.
that went
No,
for a
well,
long
I'm
time.
just, show me the numbers
being
then.
addressed
Show
properly.
everybody in this room the numbers of what it's gonna cost village residents. Is it a cost benefit or a cost disbenefit? And then also I'd like an answer to how we would do dispute resolution. Because I will tell you this, if with the window open, if a resident has an issue with the way a town employee handles an inspection, that resident is gonna come to this window and then our staff is gonna be put in a difficult situation. So I am just trying to make it a great plan, but without these numbers and this information, and you can turn your head and not look at me, and I'm just, but this is factual, and I think everybody in here has a right to know. So I'm just asking, if you have the answers, I'd love to see.
Dispute resolution is handled at the town level then?
I'm guessing it's at the town level.
It's a town employee, it can't be handled at a village.
No, it'll be at the town level.
We could lodge a complaint, and I would assume it would go to their supervisor.
It will definitely be the town level.
Would be Burke or Howard. And they have a personnel department headed by McCarthy. They have personnel over there.
So, okay, so then maybe it makes sense to just close the window entirely. If we're just really taking it in, it's kind of like, the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. So it's just an illusion that we, the village, have any kind of autonomy over any building or permitting issue in the village by just simply dropping the paperwork off, because the minute the building and zoning clerk takes the paperwork, it sounds like at that point, it's just delivered over to the town and everything then from A to Z is handled there. So
And then
maybe
when
to
it's done, it
streamline
comes
it,
back to the clerk here.
okay, for
And we
what
also have a
purpose?
fire inspection going on up in there.
I understand that. We could still keep a fire inspection because that's.
No,
And
but in
complaints still
in the
come here.
discussions though with the clerk, it was talked about the way it was set up, with us still having the window.
Okay, well, that takes care of that, but I'd still like to see numbers of what the cost benefit is
Versus what?
versus hiring a
Versus,
code enforcement officer.
We,
Well, I'm
see
just-
numbers on that, we have no model
Yeah, this
there
is one
either.
of the reasons why we've gone ahead and worked at this, because no matter how many times we've hired building inspectors and CEOs and all those people,
15
they
to
move
20
on.
years.
we go through so many that it's a house of cards. And the one staying thing right now, I think, is the fact that Bridget's over there. But we go through these code enforcement officers until they get a little experience, then they go on somewhere else because we don't pay enough. And we'll never pay enough. We're a village, not a town. I don't know how many people went out of here and then ended up going to the town to work. They've got 28 building inspectors. We will never be without a building inspector or, you know, a CEO to handle our issues. That's one of the benefits of this whole idea of even looking at this.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, that is definitely a benefit. But what I'm just asking.
So if we
and I-
hire somebody, I mean, I gotta say, you're probably gonna pay him part-time even 25 to 30,000 a year. Plus his benefits, plus his, you know, his insurance and whatever else he gets, pension, whatever. I mean, I think
Well, if
this
they're
is,
part-time, they wouldn't necessarily qualify for that. The benefit part, but-
right, but I mean, it should be workers' comp and FICA and social security, the whole thing. But it just makes sense to let them pick that up and do it. And it's gonna be less than what we're paying now. And ultimately, I don't know, maybe 5 years from now, they'll end up closing the window here. Maybe it won't be efficient. We don't have anybody here taking information on assessments or taking information on police. The town does all that themselves. At this point, I think it's really good to have a face connected with our building department, and that's our building clerk. And it really makes a lot of sense. And Bridget and the town were in a lot of these discussions, and everybody was all on the same page, and it was working. So I'm not sure to the exact dollar, I don't think we can come up with that, because we don't know how many hours they're gonna be working.
We don't know what projects are coming in, we have no
Right.
idea, Deb.
Well, no, I understand, but we should be able to get the data at least until date, you know, so if we've only gotten December and January, there's gotta be a way that they should have in their system, if they're helping us, it sounds like we have been in contact with them over code enforcement, like the car, for example. So they're not doing that for free, so there should be some type of record there that should be easy to show the numbers, to at least get a sense of whether or not this is a cost benefit or not. And that's all I'm asking for. And if the rest, you know, I'm clearly, you know, the board, you were on board with this, and if you just want to move forward with it, and you're okay without having those facts and those numbers, then so be it, but I'm simply just presenting that I think that we should have that information before having a decision made. But that's all I want to say about it.
I just don't think there's a concrete number that you can nail down, because it's gonna vary every month.
I understand that, but we do know
So I
that
don't know
there
what
are.
we're looking at.
Well, we do know that there are
And then what
projects
are we
on the
doing?
horizon. We know that the Migos project is on the horizon. We know that there are incoming fees for the Natali project. The village is only 1 square mile. We pretty much have all the projects presented in front of us to date, that if we ran some numbers, we could potentially look at that and figure that out. I know it's not gonna be a solid number, but it's at least gonna be a ballpark to give everyone an idea. So that's all.
I couldn't begin to tell you how many hours we're gonna need for inspections on a project like Newell. I have no idea.
Well, being that they've got 28 building inspectors and it sounds like they're pretty much all seasoned, I trust them with a pretty good estimate of what that would be. Hours for that size of the square foot project. I think it's easy to figure that out for them. Not for me or you, but for the, you know, guys who, ladies who have done it.
Dan, what do you wanna do before, we should go forward with it?
I would like to.
I don't really wanna stall and say any further, actually.
I'm more than willing to, call for a public hearing for planning. This is my, first resolution is written up as building department code enforcement, but that's not.
Yeah, I put that on there because when I was doing this, you had requested public hearing for both, and then
Right.
Chip said that we didn't need it, and then Deb had asked to have one for the building department, and so then I had asked everybody to respond, and I didn't get any answers, so I thought, well, I'll put them both on this, put the public hearing on there and the approval of the contract, because I wasn't sure which way you wanted to go. I figured whichever one.
Well, they should read planning department.
you wanna do a public hearing for the planning department?
Well, that's the agreement that's coming.
The intermunicipal agreement on Delano 1 is gonna be planning department.
Yes.
So why,
Right?
well, I don't know. It's up to
Building-
you. I mean, anybody, if you want to have a if you want to have a public hearing on this agreement, which we have not yet seen, which is okay.
We don't know anything about it.
Presumably we will.
Do we
before-
want to move on this building department thing tonight or not?
But this has, the planning department public hearing has nothing to do.
With the building department, that's what I'm saying. So that was a combined thing. That made it a combined thing.
I mean, anybody, as a matter of procedure, anybody can make any I mean, if somebody wants to make a resolution to hold a public hearing, they can do that. If that's a second, you can vote on it. If you don't want to make a motion, it's under your name. If you want to make that resolution, you can. If you
For holding
don't, holding a public hearing,
for the planning department.
whatever you want.
Okay, is that what we want to do?
Well, I don't even think we need to do it.
We're working on the agreement. We're not gonna do the building.
Okay, fine.
Scratch
So we'll scratch number 1.
Only thing I would like to is.
For-
the insurance.
For the,
Can you omit that?
for the building department.
Can you omit that?
Because it's clearly contradicts.
So just omit it. Can you omit it?
What's your concern, Christine?
Oh, I've asked everybody to come forward with this stuff for months.
I mean, any changes we make, we're obviously, the town would have to agree to.
What was that word?
Changing that out of the agreement they sent us without discussing.
We can do
Which wording, which one?
The insurance, it should not be in that paragraph at all here. It's because it makes no sense, number one. And number 4, it has, full detailed explanation of what insurances they are.
No,
So this word should not even
okay, I
exist
can
in that
explain the
paragraph.
difference. In number 3, they're saying that what they're gonna charge us is gonna include a portion of the insurance of what, for the employees. What they're saying in number 4 is the town is going to cover the employees on their workers' compensation, insurance, and unemployment, meaning we don't have to pay that on their employees to the state, to the insurance company.
Right.
But they're still gonna bill it included in their hourly rate that they're gonna charge us. That's the difference.
Well, it's gonna be their hourly rate plus a percentage to cover those additional benefits. Is that-
Right, that's the way I'm understanding it.
That's what I thought too. That's
And
why
number
I did-
4 talks about the policy itself for employees,
Right.
not individual.
Well, that's like clear as mud, so I think somebody should get some confirmation of that.
It says, will the village will not cover for the town employees, nor will the village be responsible for any portion of the premium.
The premium,
Right. Sure.
For workers' comp.
Insurance coverage, unemployment insurance coverage, or health coverage. Will not be, so that
I
stays in
think,
4.
I think that's right. I think insurance should come off of 3, and this is very
I
clear.
agree with you, and that's what I said, but I don't think we can just do that, can we? Just cross out that word.
No, we're gonna have to have a conversation with them.
You may be talking about,
Go see if you can find the bill from the town for December, January, February.
Is it gonna be in the file
It
cabinet?
should be in there, yes. Okay, Tony and hers.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break.
Does not have that parenthetical. Five. Alternates identical. But four is not plus white over
with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Hunt. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Administrator Kindred, would you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Rogers?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Delano?
Here.
Trustee Hunt?
Here.
Trustee Torrey?
Here.
Trustee Loader? Here. Attorney Greco?
Here.
DPW Crew Chief Hillman?
Here.
Deputy Treasurer Lee?
Here. Okay, thank you. We have no proclamations this evening, so I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no public hearings this evening. That takes us into suspension of rules for public participation. So I'll make a motion to open the floor for public participation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This time, if you'd like to address the board, we ask that you come up to the podium and state your name for the record. And we will be timing. We ask that you can keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
I'll do it over with.
Have to get all the numbers.
I'll be back. Charles Yoda, 5411 Main Street, Williamsville. I'm here to, after listening to the work session, I'm here to, I guess, segue that the idea of turning over the building department and enforcement over to the town and getting it done is a great idea. I've been waiting 1 year now since a large awning was put up that blocks my business and my signage. It's gone to building department that we had previously erroneously gave a nod and a wink and allowed the owner of the building to put up the awning and put up a fence also, which was illegal. He was ordered to take that down, also ordered to take down the awning, offensive awning. It went because the building is zoned historical. They went to the HBC commission, and he's had extensive opportunities and hearings, and each one he was voted to remove that awning, and he was also allowed to put a smaller, more fitting awning on the building that befits the historical nature of that building. It would be a win-win for the village, win-win for me, win-win for everybody. But the gentleman refuses to, he's thumbing in his nose at the village, and there's no enforcement mechanism yet in place that's consistent, that will work to make this happen. So I'm saying is right now, the village is a paper tiger as far as enforcement of codes, and I urge all citizens to just ignore the village until it's turned over to the town, because that's what's happening right now. And I would hope that you would, as a board, push forward, and the intrinsic value of having the Amherst Town Code Board enforcing the town code enforcers enforcing. You'll have real plumbing inspectors, real electrical inspectors, real building inspectors, not just one man trying to wear all the hats, and he's not good at any of them. And you get a lot of things that get shifted through the cracks that are wrong in this village as far as building codes. I urge you to move forward, regardless of the cost. The intrinsic value that you'll gain from having all those things resolved will outweigh any cost of hiring somebody who quits and goes on to a bigger, better paying job because you can't afford to pay him to do all those things, and he's overwhelmed anyway. That's all I have to say. I wish we could have this thing resolved, please, for 1 full year. I'm tired of coming here and asking about it.
Joe Carden, 45 Danbury Lane. I just like to compliment all those volunteers that did all of the beautification of Williamsville, like between the library and here. And 98% of the people were women. I saw one or two guys, and the lady on Evans and Main Street, all by herself. I've seen her there when I go to Lightning. And the other thing, for the first time in 54 years, for 10 months with the gates have not been in, we have additional growth at my property. There's a huge bush with white flowers that we've never seen before. And there's about 4 trees that never had any leaves on them because of the submersion of the water over the years. And this year they have leaves on them. On the edge of my creek bank is like the nicest I've ever seen it in 54 years. I'm grateful for that. We're grateful for those gates not being in. And I won't belabor this any further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meyer Williamsville, I just wanna, go on to what Charlie said and what you guys were talking about in regards to the, turning everything over to Amherst. I think it's a great job, a great idea, but I would strongly recommend that, as I told this gentleman back here, everything starts with the numbers, it doesn't end with them. And I think it's just good to get a baseline number. You're not gonna get exact, but just find out what the costs are. Because, as I said to this gentleman too, in 10 years, my taxes have gone up $1,000. And when you think about what you get out of Williamsville, emotional, I don't think that's worth a lot. You get sidewalk plowing, you don't have police, you use Amherst, you don't have schools. So it might be time, again, I know this is an awful thing, to think about how we can better serve the citizens by moving more things to the town of Amherst where you have 28 people to do things that are professionals. I agree with Charlie that a lot of times Williamsville is like a paper tiger, and it's, no offense to you guys, it's, the world's changed. And that's why villages are going out of business, because you just can't handle the complexities of the world. And so I think it's a good start of what you're doing with Amherst, but I would strongly encourage, because Brian knows the village, and now is the time to start moving things over there. Because villages just can't do it anymore. Those are my thoughts. I think maybe you should do a survey. I really do. Because 42% of Williamsville is rentals. So there's not a lot of people that have emotional ties because they stay here 2 to 4 years. So let's think about that. Thank you.
Hi, Bill Kender from Eden. Could I hand something out to you? I have on my.
Sure, what's that?
I had emailed all of you in advance of the meeting, so that you had seen that. I emailed you from representing New York Citizens Audit, which is a citizens group that was organized to perform an open source audit of the New York State Board of Elections. And I sent you the study and deficits report, a summary of the study, the responses that New York Citizens Audit made to the Board of Elections, and a summary of everything. You all have received that in the emails?
Administrator Kindren gave copies,
Okay.
hard copies, I believe, to us.
So basically, what our group is looking for is, we wanted to make sure that our elections are accurate. There are 3 basic tenets of any election. First of all, the voter rolls have to be accurate. The votes that are counted have to be from qualified voters, and the number of votes have to equal the number of voters. New York Citizens Audit did an open source audit of the 2020 general election and found that there were 338,000 more votes cast during that election in 2020 federal election than voters who voted. They found other discrepancies and deficits as well, including nearly 740,000, ineligible votes that were cast statewide. And also 1.1 million unique individuals had their identities cloned illegally to 2.4 million identities, any one of which could vote. Some of these have voted, some encouraged voters have voted. It's been documented, and the research director recently published in a scholarly journal a peer-reviewed article which documents all of his findings. And I just have some of the things that he mentioned here. Very simply, they discovered steganography within the New York State voter rolls, which is a way of saying it's something that's hidden in plain sight. There were 4 distinct algorithms that work on the New York State voter rolls. These are very complex. They're extremely well hidden. The manipulation is obviously illegal. Extensive unauthorized changes are being made at scale. Implementing this was expensive. New York State data is forged and destroyed. And the law says that nice voting is completely untrustworthy. It's considered a total loss of control data breach, which means that it's unreliable and unrecoverable. They also presented in Albany on May 1st of this year to the New York State Legislature and the election law committees as well. Their presentation, which is available on the auditny.com website. And a summary of what he told me was, state and county identification numbers are manipulated by an algorithm to create distinctive but well-hidden identifying characteristics. This can be used to identify records of particular interest or to gain access to them secretly. So we're basically asking, also provided to you was a resolution for an audit, which is just asking, as representatives of your village and people in the village, and coincidentally, in the 2020 general election, there were 13 individuals in the village of Williamsville who double voted. I don't know who they are, but that was the number that was found. So basically, these people might not know that that's going on. I would assume that if any one of you could be cloned without knowing it, and if your clone is voting, you could be on the hook for any kind of repercussions that would come from that. So it's basically asking for an end-to-end full audit and to really go from there. And I could defer to my other colleague, Mark, if you wanted to get any other additional information that I might have mentioned.
Okay.
Who would be doing this audit?
Which
The
one?
New York State Legislature would have to enact the law and come up with the funding for it. So this,
You can come up to the mic. Thank
Identify
you.
yourself, please, name and address.
Mark Wilson, 475 Center Street, Town of Aurora. I am a retired network field engineer, and I've worked with networking and security my entire career. And I've been in an independent study of the elections with an election watcher, found a lot of discrepancies with the machines, chain of custody, and now the database. There's in the database, there's now 10,325 regular registered people in the town of Amherst. We don't have it broken down like the village, but that's just for Amherst. And some of those are voting. It's not the people themselves that are voting. They're being manipulated through this algorithm that we had talked about, and they're being assigned votes in the voter system to the extent we added up in FOIL requests that each county, all 62 counties, added up their total votes across the state, compared that with the State Board of Elections voting numbers, and as you can see on the sheet, 338,000 vote discrepancy. There were 338,000 more votes counted than people who showed up to vote or mailed in their votes. And what this does to the residents of the village of Williamsville, it affects them all, it dilutes their vote, because you didn't cause the problem, you're not involved with the problem, but we have somebody outside with administrative access to the system is manipulating data and assigning votes, which is provable, and we have the paper by our data expert that was peer reviewed that proves that. So we want a provable and accurate election. It's reasonable, and it's in the New York State election law to have an audit. And our State Board of Elections seem to think that they are exempt from ever having an audit. They've never been audited. We, the people, want them to prove that this election was fair and it was accurate. And we have the data that proves it wasn't. They are just responding to us with indifference and inaction. So we're bringing this all down to the town levels all across the state. And we're going all around Erie County because we are Erie County residents. And we're just presenting our data for more of a educational type of organization at this time, letting you know what the facts are, what the data is, and we're looking for a response. And as I said, this will be sent up to Legislator Liddell, and she will collect the ones from her district and push it on up to the legislator who needs to write the bill. And the money is there from the Help America Vote Act, so that's already taken care of. But we've just been treated from the Secretary of State, Attorney General, all the way down with indifference and inaction on this issue. And we want some redress for this grievance we have. And it starts at the local town level, so we can use your help, momentum to push this audit up. It doesn't cost you anything, doesn't involve any more of your time. It just requires you to put your name on that resolution in those grievances and the fix we have. There's 5 things that are at the end. And we would like, which are reasonable, and we can explain those further if you need a work session understand more of what we're requesting from the state. Like auditable elections, we would like an ID for like a QR code, so when you vote, you could follow that vote to make sure it did get registered in the county, and then it did get registered in the state. You can track it all up, they do that. For UPS and FedEx, it does that by the millions every day, and state lottery, they can tell you in a second after millions of people voted, you know, how you came out in the election. I mean, I'm in network engineering, it's not that difficult, systems in there, they can put it in place, they haven't. And everything from the machines to the chain of custody to the database to who's manipulating the data administratively. It could be a domestic bad actor, or it could be even a foreign government that's manipulating our data, which makes us a national security issue, because there are enough 1.2 million extra state board of election ID numbers floating around here, and they aren't assigned to actual people that they can harvest, manipulate, and they can put anyone in any elected office right now with all this extra state board of election ID numbers.
And if you don't mind me asking, where are these algorithm created votes going?
The algorithm was created, we believe, June 15th, 2007. That's when all these irregular state board of election ID numbers started popping up. So we almost know the day that they inserted it in there, when they are.
What was that date, in 2007?
2007,
Oh, wow.
and during the W. Bush administration, when these extra irregular votes have been put in. Not, and as a voter inspector, I've seen when somebody came in with an irregular registration, they had the wrong address, wrong name, wrong date of birth, they could correct it on their poll pad right there, and then they would have them fill out an affidavit ballot and have it slipped in. So we have thousands, tens of thousands of irregular votes being assigned votes that have incomplete information. They're invalid votes, they're not complete, and they obviously didn't get put in there by a real person, because those poll workers who do a wonderful job, I watch them as an inspector, if they work hard, they would have stopped them, the system would have stopped them. Every law that's being violated is spelled out very clearly there as we stepped along. The New York State voter law is 850 pages, I read the whole thing. It's beautiful, it's lengthy, there's enough laws in there to have a completely fair, auditable election. And all we need is our board of elections personnel to follow the law. And that's what we're requesting in an audit case. It's not unreasonable. Let's prove to us that it's fair and accurate.
Okay, so question for you. So you said, have you taken this over to the town of Amherst at all? Because I noticed you said they had like 10,325.
Regular registrations in the town.
In the town.
Which means they're incomplete in some
Okay.
form. A lot of them are purged. If you die, you move out of town, they purge you, they have a purge date, but they have a lot of purged ones, they have no date. And what we're finding is a lot of these are being switched to active, they're voting, and then they're being repurged at the other end. And that's a nefarious person, people, the group from the outside that's manipulating the data.
Are you taking this resolution to a town meeting as well, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all across the state, actually.
And then the idea is once those resolutions, if they get passed at a town or at a village level, that like for here, it would go to legislator Vinyl. Jeannie Vinyl's our legislator, right? And then she then presents it to the legislature, and then they push it up to the state.
State level, yes.
Okay, is that correct?
That's the final destination. The legislator, they will just, they have to write a bill saying, do the audit, and then the audit gets done.
Okay.
But it helps get us momentum, because we are getting inaction from everybody all the way down the chain. They think they're unauditable, that they don't have to follow the law, and you can see all the violations there, and they want us just to sit down and shut up and fix it. And we're not going to. So we move on, we're asking for your help, and we're gonna help the residents of Williamsville by stopping their vote from being diluted. Right now, 145% of Erie County is registered to vote, the voting age population, we have 145%. County Board of Election ID numbers, the voting age population. but 25% over.
Yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as 145%, like you're saying, it's 45% over. What it,
145% of our voting age population is registered to vote.
okay, well, that doesn't, I know what you're saying, but I'm saying to common sense, that doesn't make any sense.
No, we want them to answer why.
I know, but, yeah, I
If
get
you're,
it.
if the village's budget was 145% over, I think it would be reasonable for a resident to say, hey, show us
Yeah,
what's
okay.
wrong. Yeah, so it's not an unreasonable request.
So you're talking about Erie County? There's 145%.
Erie County, we're one of the, outside New York City, we're the worst county in all of upstate New York, older registrations.
And we have to have the New York State legislature fund and force this down the food chain then?
No,
To
they
the
just,
county level?
it's up to the legislator to do the audit. So they have to write a bill to authorize it, and in one of our requests, it's the type of company, we want a bonded company, with some stipulations that's independent, it's not partisan, to do the audit. So we got some requests, I mean, they can ignore our requests, but we give them a very good example of what we want. And we like this resolution because it's been gone over with lawyers, and eventually, if we have to, at the next federal election, we'll use this in court of law. The federal election 2024 guidelines are much more stringent than New York State's.
So why isn't the Erie County Board of Elections looking at the total number of registered voters and saying, well, wait a minute, we don't have that many people over the age of 18 in Erie County?
Excellent question.
Then why aren't you going to the Erie County Board of Elections? That's what I like. Why aren't you addressing the Erie County Board of Elections?
Oh, we have, and they've given us in action and indifference. And we've shown them that there are clone voters where they'll take your name and they'll put a different middle initial, and they'll sign you a new voter ID number. Now you're
But
cloned.
you know, it's interesting, you present this, but I'm not sure where you get your facts from. I'm a little confused here, you know?
All right, our facts were foiled from all the counties.
Well, I haven't seen them though. I mean, you're telling me this and I don't know if it's correct. You know, I have a hard time believing something that's I have no documentation, I have no
Well, we
statistics.
can't give you the, well, I can't hand you it. It's
Well,
21 million
for me to
line
pass a
database.
resolution like you request, I would need that, definitely. So I'm
You
a
would
no
have
on
to,
this.
you would have to FOIL request that, but our data comes from the Secretary of State and all the counties. And so we're using their data, we just analyze their data.
Is it on auditnewyork.com?
Well, we don't have the 21 million line database on there, but all one, on that website, we have all the data that's presented and all the facts and our analysis of it. And it's just, if I could just push back a little, it's not our, it's not the State Board of Elections decision to prove us wrong. We the people require them to prove this election is accurate in our analysis. And we spent 2 years on this and 20,000 hours, and I appreciate the time you're giving. We spent a lot of time analyzing this with a lot of experts, and they have to prove it's accurate. I mean, they're not giving us a response. We want a response from them. And just, you can solve the whole argument, give us the audit. It's in the state law, audit is part of New York state law.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Karen.
Jordan Abrams, 130 Milton Street. I just wanted to start with a quick thank you to the action with the Amherst Police Department enforcing the stop sign at California and Milton Street. I think based on what we saw, probably about 6 tickets an hour or something like that on a Sunday morning when there's low traffic. Can't imagine what it would be on, you know, I mean, you put 3 cars over there and they get tickets like shoot fish in a barrel. And also I saw for the first time in a long time a parking ticket issued at Los Robles and Main Street. So definitely there was some action that, you know, that was taken there. Appreciate that. 6 points. I'm going to try and cover them quickly here, be respectful of everyone's time. The first being improved parking signage or enforcement for the odd side, no parking side of Milton Street by the park in front of 129 Milton. So there's 2 no standing, no parking signs there on that block, but people frequently park there. The second being no parking signage at the end of Milton Street in front of the playground, which was discussed in the work session today. There used to be a fence there, if you look back at the historical information, with a no parking sign. So people pull straight into the dead end and they park. With the driveway being there, it gets really crazy really quickly. The third being a traffic solution for the dead end of Milton and Asher Crossing. I actually have a couple proposed solutions. So the first would be permanent signage, stop signs in both directions. The second being a speed bump or a speed table. I understand there's implications with emergency vehicles as well as snow plowing. My understanding, based on very limited research is that a speed table kind of comes up, levels out, and it goes back down, is better for the plow equipment for clearing and that. I think Natalia would be responsible for plowing that because it's their driveway anyways, but I do know that the village plow trucks use it to turn around and come back out if they don't plow it straight into the end there. A painted crosswalk, we talked about getting a line striping machine, so a painted crosswalk just as a visual reminder to people that are coming out of that driveway that, hey, there might be people walking here. Or a sidewalk connection, and then a fire gate or similar, like what's at the end of Garden Parkway going into the apartment complex that goes out to Union Road to prevent people from using that as a cut through onto Garden Parkway. The fourth being parking violations at California and Main on both Main Street for the bus stop there in front of Squeeze Juice Street, and on the California side with the fire hydrant and no standing. A couple of proposed solutions there. Paint the curving as a visual reminder that this is a no standing zone. Just an idea, again, not trying to change the world, just something to visually remind people, hey, you shouldn't be parking here. Increase the enforcement of illegally parked cars. Communication with those business owners. Or fencing on grass to make it less convenient to park and walk across the grass. Squeeze already restores their grass every spring, makes it look really nice. And even that little piece of yellow tape, you'd be amazed at the difference that it makes in the number of people that park illegally there. 5, restore the grass and curb in front of the condos on California and create better signage for no standing and reinforce that with notification to the residents. So on the side that the condos are currently built on, that's the no parking, no standing side of the street. When Natalie started the construction project, they dumped a bunch of asphalt there, which sort of looks like it should be parking. But if you go back to the historical pictures and you look, the cars are parked in front of no standing, no parking signs. These are village residents. They're new to the village, so we want to notify them, hey, you can't park on this side. Go ahead, Dan.
That's on the east side?
That's on the side of the finished 4 unit. That would be the east side, yes.
Yeah, we looked at that. That'll be part of our old fashioned.
Yep.
They need to restore that.
And then the refuse containers and servicing them at ties that violate noise ordinances. I've approached the board a couple times historically about this. They empty the dumpsters as early as 5 o'clock in the morning, and they slam them really good. And the other point along that refuse is that they're not collecting it frequently enough. I showed you a picture earlier. The dumpsters are overflowing pretty much every single day of the week. They do have 2 dumpsters, 2 recycling containers there. The one is in an enclosure, so I'm assuming they didn't just do that because they feel like it. I'm assuming the other one that's on the depot side of that driveway should also be in some kind of enclosure. Maybe that was temporary. They're gonna have to account for space to put those dumpsters in more permanently. I have a bunch of pictures, but they're too big to email to you. But this is the end of the street. It's probably big enough. You can see there's plenty of congestion there. This is what the end of Milton Street used to look like with the fences. It's available. I'm trying to go fast here. This is, again, a sidewalk, or if it's just painted. I really think that at least gives a visual reminder, and it doesn't cost the village a bunch of money. This is at the end of Milton Street out of the driveway from Asher Crossing. Again, it's just some paint to give a visual reminder. This is the emergency gate that's at the apartment complex that cuts through to Union Road. And this is sort of, just pop back up. This is sort of what it looks like. We've all seen it at California and Main Street constantly with the bus. So again, just putting some striping along the road there. And I have a picture with the with their tape up even, I'm telling you, even that yellow tape, just that thin yellow tape makes a huge difference with that. And that's the green, so that used to be grass. If you go back to the historical pictures, they're not supposed to be parking on that side. It did create a big problem for the plowing during the snowstorm over Christmas holiday as well, because there were people parking and stuff on both sides. Thanks very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Ben, could we,
That was a lot.
I know, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
Jordan, before
It's too
you,
big. so I
Jordan,
can't-
yeah, could you though send me that all in an email? I mean, but you can reduce the photos, you know,
Sure.
if you
That's
wouldn't
right.
mind, because it was a lot to keep track of, and I'd really like to review each and every one of them,
Sure.
please.
Okay, no problem.
Ben, if we're, you mentioned we're getting a striping machine.
Yep.
Could we, because that park is very busy, and I'm wondering if we could just do a diagonal crosswalk from where the sidewalk ends at the temporary stop sign diagonally to the walking path, not how you did it. You did it up against the rock, parallel with rocks. I think that serves as more of a visual because the stop sign is there and there's so many kids I see walking. And it kind of, they're almost like looking for like, okay, where do I cross?
Yeah,
Because the
it's-
sidewalk comes to.
It's a dead end.
Yeah, so if
There was
you
no
don't,
provision for
right,
people living there at any point.
right, so
now
maybe
they're living there, so we gotta
just
figure it out.
a quick diagonal, you know, I think would be a great visual if we can do that.
Give that out.
Oh boy,
Thank you.
okay, but that's a great idea, thanks Jordan.
The dumpsters is there a size requirement? Is there a square footage requirement for?
The code just says
Not in our
if you
code.
require more than 2 totes, you have to get a dumpster. It doesn't specify.
How many
particular
dumpsters?
size.
That's maybe something that we want to explore down the line.
Doesn't, we don't have any guidance.
For,
Yeah, I mean, I assume dumpsters are sort of.
I think the provision would say that your
Standard sizes.
container has to be closed. So you can probably cite for an overflowing container,
Yeah, well,
just like
that's-
you could
that's-
to somebody else.
Oh,
yeah.
They have 2 dumpsters, the 2 dumpsters are inadequate. I think it says if you have more than 2, which talks to your 1,000,000 cans, the reason why there's 1,000,000 cans is because there's 10 apartments or 10 buildings, 2 per building. So that's why you see the cluster of cans. So that's sort of, they have 2 dumpsters right now. I think the site plan only, I haven't seen the one that you have yet. I asked for it for a few years, but haven't actually seen the official. I got the one off their website, just has the 1 dumpster. But that other one that's by the depot, it was just set there temporarily, but they have a really nice enclosure that they built. But people are gonna walk to the, I get it, the closest dumpster, so.
Right.
Jordan, did you foil for the site plan? Did you fill out, because
I
I know
did,
we
yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah,
mean, there's-
I came a couple times. I think it's a combination of the issue. I foiled for it. I went to the window in person during business hours. I wrote letters, I wrote emails. I have been asking for, I just assumed that it's, hey, you said requested, I requested it. I come, I think at least 3 times during business hours, filled out the form and submitted it.
Well, I mean,
I-
I have that small,
Yeah.
I gave Chip that hard copy if you want it. I mean, it's hard to, but I can give that to you.
I'm
That was,
looking at it right now to try to figure out where the dumpster enclosure is, because it would have been part of the site.
Yeah.
plan, But this is too small.
yeah, well, I can,
It's-
I'm
You can
guessing it's
find
that, but that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
assume we would have, a copy of that site plan in the building department.
Under the code, any dumpster needs to be in an enclosure.
So it's,
So if they added a new dumpster that was not accounted for in the site plan, and they should, then they're gonna have to come back and get an approval for a new enclosure. For a new for another dumpster. And I agree, if one dumpster's not enough, then they need 2. But it will need to be enclosed. And they're gonna have to find some
so
space.
there's the dumpsters at the
Yeah.
end next to the depot.
Mhm.
There's the enclosed dumpsters in the middle, which is on the site plan, which you pointed to. It's the right, what you pointed to is correct. And so it's a really nice,
Yep.
again, but that's also to the rat problem, that's where they're coming from. Cheesy Chick seeing it because Natalie's dumpsters are overflowing.
Do you see any rats where you are?
I do,
Do you?
absolutely. We had a rat problem in our garage. We did a bunch of, things to try and prevent them. The bird feeders are also part of it, but overflowing dumpsters from apartment complexes are definitely gonna, increase your rat problem because it's a stable source
Well,
of.
those shouldn't, at the end of that driveway, that little turnaround driveway, they shouldn't be out in the open anything.
Right.
So that needs to be,
I think they temporarily put those there, but they need more than one dumpster for 90 apartments and how many townhomes, right? I mean,
all right, this will be addressed.
Thank you.
I would imagine.
Yeah, so the zoning code requires all
have their
refuse,
own
appurtenances,
Yes.
equipment, and containers shall be located within a four-sided enclosure constructed with the same complementary material found in the principal structure. Such enclosure shall be constructed to a height not less than 1 foot above the height of all elements within the enclosure. Gate access to the enclosure shall be blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's specific design standards that govern the enclosure. That's-
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Walter Pacalo, 108 Basswood Drive, Chickawaga, New York. I'll be brief, I just have a few comments to follow up on what my colleagues said. We do not expect a vote or signatures on the resolution at this meeting. When is your next board meeting?
June 26th.
26th, June.
June 26th, so
Okay.
two weeks from tonight.
Okay, Indians, I'm sure you all have many questions that need to be answered to help you decide one way or the other. And we are not the ones that can answer those difficult questions, because I'm sure they're require complicated answers. We can put you in touch with our executive director of New York Citizens Audit, Ms. Marley Hornick, and she would be the best person to answer any questions you have regarding what we're doing and what we hope. And we can do that at any time in the next 2 weeks to provide you with whatever you need. Okay?
Could you send that contact data to the mayor or the administrator, and they can share it with the board?
Yes.
That would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here's my card too, if you want me to email, get that over to me. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, Tom.
Those board members, my name is Thomas Frank, and I reside at 5403 Main Street. And I'd like to bring to your attention, as far as Dan's, the resolution that you approved having to do with the village of Williamsville and the town of Amherst, as far as the LWRP, the Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan. And just so you know, the town of Amherst, they passed a local law creating a new chapter 205 to the code of the town of Amherst Local Waterfront Revitalization Program, LWRP. And that what's very important. And I'm going to give you this, that it has to do with Ellicott Creek out here, as far as a long-term, as far as the management and maintenance of the creek, and putting it in a historic perspective, that as far as that there's an opportunity here that it has to do with the CFA, the Consolidated Funding Application for District, I think it's District 9, that and it will involve the Glen Park Joint Board as far as, but it also it's multifaceted. It's an enterprise project having to do with the Westwood country, the Pharmaceutical Country Club for the Amherst Central Park Greenway. This is very important as far as they want to move the historic, used to be the Amherst History Museum. They changed it to the Buffalo Niagara History Museum. They want to move it to the Brownfield and the golf course. and that that this project, there are two goals. One has to do with the fact that Ellicott Creek is a tributary. The reason why the village was incorporated in 1850 was to connect Ellicott Creek to the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor, and there's an opportunity here for the National Heritage Corridor connection in the village of Williamsville, and I don't want to get into the specific issues having to do with the 30 water mills and the production of the concrete for building the canal. But also as far as the energy generation and as far as the resolution for the village and the town, that this is a joint project, and it's connected to the GDNRTC, the Greater Buffalo Niagara Transportation Council. As far as the 2050, the regional plan for the walkable village, as far as all the sidewalks and the infrastructure, maintenance, the water lines, the sewer lines, the highway storm sewers that are all connected. I think they sort of got the name wrong as far as the LWRP, the local waterfront. It should be the local watershed revitalization plan. That there are aspects here that this is sort of like a demonstration project, that one has to do with the National Park Service, the U.S. Department of the Interior, but also with the Ellicott Creek. That water is goes through the Niagara Power Project, and they convert it to electricity and they sell it. As far as the relicensing,
Tom, you want to point this back at the village?
right. But I just want to make you aware that there are, as far as the Greenway context, that it was a part of the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Okay, and I think down in Florida, they got like $100 million of damage as far as the restoration. That the Greenway was to mitigate the impact. And the other one has to do with the FERC, the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management, but also this is long term as far as the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, as far as the Niagara Greenway. Ellicott Creek and Tonawanda Creek are part of the Greenway, and it's a part of the LWRP plan. They shut it off at the Niagara Falls Boulevard.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
I just want to finish that. There are federal regulations, there are state, there are regional, there are county, there are town, and there are village that are all tied into this thing.
All right.
And I want to give you as far as the Erie Canal, the National Heritage Corridor.
Thank you.
Current one. As far as the Greenway, it's an interconnection with all the parks and trails. And that's the model for the East Coast Greenway, became the model for the Hudson River Greenway and the Erie Canal and the Niagara River Greenways.
Do you want this copy? I don't want to take your only copy.
No, I
You sure? Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Tom. Do you want to pass?
Oh, the last thing I wanted to say is that the deadline for the CFA application is July, I think it's the 23rd, as far as the village and the town.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Real quick. Larry Zazowski, 70 Milton, Los Rolls, sorry about that.
It can be confusing.
I just want, Chip, I will get you that information that.
I think I have it, I think Eileen gave me.
Yeah, I love your idea of getting another meeting together, focusing on these issues. And I hope you could publicize that so that members of the community can join in.
Don't see, I mean, they were more than willing to have meetings when they were trying to put the whole thing together, so.
I didn't want to bring in all the other pictures.
Should we call it a punch list meeting? You know, seriously,
Well,
because
who's in charge now? Now that Tim's not with us, who makes who's cracking the whip?
the town is in working as our code enforcement under our the prior agreement that we had when they covered it the last time. We're just waiting to get into the actual agreement, the long-term per se. But yeah, it would be the town.
Well, lastly, I'd just like to compliment our mayor. In a business setting, you definitely want to know what your costs are before you go jumping in on your contract. And I don't see there any way you could be able to take, I think there is a way that you could take the costs for last year for Tim and his organization without giving them the number. Give it to the Amherst people and say, now what would this cost with your organization? I think you can come up with at least some guidance.
That's
of where it's
what
gonna go.
we've done, and we've been working on that for months.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any numbers on it though? Or- Dan,
No, apparently we don't have enough numbers on it.
okay, all right.
And it's fine. I mean, crossing those last few Ts, that's fine, but, you know.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll get there. All right, anyone else who would like to come up this evening?
Dan Hunt, 75 Evans. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I think that this village board should move forward with having the town of Amherst come in. I come to these meetings and I just hear about all what went on with the old code enforcement officer, where even the gentleman back there was talking about Natali. How did all these things happen with nobody doing anything? And how did the awning go up with nobody doing anything? I mean, it just makes no sense. And as a village resident and owning 2 properties in the village, even if it costs more money, the village residents are gonna get way better service than they've ever gotten before. So I think it's a no-brainer just to go ahead and do it. This gentleman back here brought up 6 things that he was talking about. That's what the village board should concentrate on in the village. I appreciate these other gentlemen coming here and talking, but those aren't village matters. What the gentleman in the back is talking about, that's what matters to the village of Williamsville.
Anyone else who'd like to comment? I'll let Larry.
Well, Carl, that's the project you want to have.
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
Pukalo.
Thank you.
The previous gentleman said that what we were talking about was not the village man. I just wanted to say that free and fair elections are everyone's concern. That we're not from this village, but when your votes are diluted by fake votes, it's everyone's concern. And it should be something everyone cares deeply about. That's all I need to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close suspension of rules for public participation.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Reports and resolutions, I'll make a motion to approve resolutions number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as they appear on the agenda.
I had a question on that, Mayor.
Sure.
On number 4. We had, the first payroll of the month was 43,000. The second is 72,000. It's a $30,000 difference. Is that end of year?
It's beginning of the year, first payroll of the new fiscal year, so there's
There's the buyout for health insurance, for the DPW, any unused comp time that get paid out,
Okay,
clothing allowance, so it's catch up with everything.
okay. I thought so, but I wasn't sure, and it was a pretty dramatic difference.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone to second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 6, and I'm not going to read all the names, but basically we are appointing the individuals listed as seasonal recreation attendants, which would mean at our pool at Garrison Park for the 2023 summer season. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that's it for my reports and resolutions. Next is Deputy Mayor Delano.
Thank you, Mayor. For my reports, we had a very successful Arbor Day event with the tree board. Let me ask you the date on that one more time. The June 3rd, at the opening of the farmer's market. And we gave away, we had roughly 110 saplings to give away, and this was the first time in a long time we got cleared out. So we didn't have to find homes for any trees at the end, which is nice. And Youth and Rec had a very successful sock day, as they called it. Our chairperson, Amy Alexander, has been dreaming of a sock day for like different event, golf, relay races, and all kinds of stuff at South Lawn Park this past Saturday. It was well attended, and I thank all those volunteers for all the hard work that they do. It's very efficient and dedicated committee. For my resolutions, I am tabling 1 and 2 because number 1, I'm tabling to enter into the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Amherst with the planning department because we didn't get the final agreement back for them. I put this on the agenda for that time, expecting it, and it didn't happen. Number 2 was to enter into the intermunicipal agreement for the code enforcement services. We've been working on this for months, and when our code enforcement officer, who is I believe our 15th in 20 years, announced that he was leaving. We had tried this before. It didn't quite work because it wasn't the right agreement, and it was more like a coverage until we got another code enforcement officer. But as people, in my opinion, and amongst others on this board, I'm sure, that is not a job for one person unless you expect somebody to work 90 hours and get paid about $250,000. It just doesn't work, and it's to no fault of anybody that's ever done it. Mr. Masters did a decent job trying to wear all the hats, but it really is, it's been proven to be an impossibility, and that's why I and Trustee Lothar was at many of these, all these meetings with me except for one, and Trustee Torrey was with me for one of them, with Amherst. There's quite a few people involved, and the building department, the planning department won't cost us anything because that is part of our village taxes. Building department is a different story. That is not covered under the town's aid budget, and they've set forth some numbers there. We just have to cross a couple T's, dot a couple I's regarding insurance things. So that's why I'm tabling number 2. While I'm in the table mode, number 5 was to appoint Gary Palumbo, who is in the planning department with Amherst, was going to be appointed as our zoning enforcement officer this evening. But if we're not in the agreement, I don't know how we put somebody in that position, correct?
That's really.
We also
more an
have
issue
to-
For the town, frankly, than it is for us. We can appoint whoever we want.
Well, true, but there's also a stipend involved in that, which is also
No, I'd
discussed.
rather see an agreement, for sure.
So, and there is a stipend, a small stipend of, because that is outside of his town duties. And this covers an hour a week for that. You could probably better explain, because my head swims when it comes to all the finer parts of it. The zoning enforcement officer does,
But
but
this
it's.
resolution isn't to appoint, it's to adopt the local law.
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about number 5.
Gary Colombo.
We're gonna create the position.
Oh, you know what?
He didn't
Sorry,
get.
I
Yeah.
didn't get 5.
Oh, okay. So,
That's okay.
so that's the reason there. No, 4, I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
But, so there's a small stipend involved with that position because it's outside of his contract with Amherst. Essentially, it covers an hour a week of the work that he would do for us, which would be essentially $2,600. So, number 3, resolve that the proposed amendment to Chapter 102 Vehicles and Traffic of the Village Code, which would extend the no standing restrictions on Mill Street, and which was the subject of public hearing on May 22nd, 2023, is hereby adopted as local law 3 of 2023.
Second. All in favor? Aye. I'm gonna abstain on that one because I wasn't at the May 22nd meeting.
Number 4, resolve that the proposed amendment to Chapter 112 zoning of the Village Code, which would create the position of zoning enforcement officer, which was the subject of a public hearing on May 22nd, 2023, is hereby adopted as local law 4 of 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'm gonna abstain on that one as well. I was not at that meeting.
And that concludes my reports and resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Delano. And next for reports and resolutions is Trustee Hunt.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that the Arts, Culture, and Diversity Committee is having the event Memories at the Mill on June 27th. We will have a caricature artist there to do caricature drawings for anybody, mostly the kids, but for anybody who would like one, and some other activities right in the Mill Complex there.
What's the date on that?
June 27th, Tuesday.
And the time?
5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you, Mayor. We are working on the flyer, and then we'll send it over to you, Eileen, for posting on the Facebook page and the website. Also, they would like to move their meetings. Thursdays on Main, it's a little tough to park up here. So they'd like to move their meetings for July and August to Wednesday, July 12th, and Wednesday, August 9th.
July
Oh.
For the,
Glen Park.
Because you guys just moved.
That's Wednesday though, the 12th. Yeah,
Yeah,
so we have,
same.
but that's okay. We have 2 rooms.
we have
Fine.
times, yeah,
Yeah.
figure to do what they do and
Yeah, I'm good with
piggyback with.
Because we're moving ours to 6 p.m. anyway, this month. That's fine.
And that, again, will only be temporary.
That's a good idea.
And then I wanted to thank Deputy Mayor Delano for joining me at the Memorial Day service. We went to the memorial service at the Williamsville Cemetery together, which was a very nice service. So thank you for going to that. And next year, keep it on your calendar. It's a lovely service. It's really, really very well done. And it wasn't as large of a turnout as I expected for what it, commemorates. So I'm hoping next year that we can have more people. And I would, let's see, that's it for reports. For resolutions, I have one resolution this evening. Resolved that Peggy Anderson, residing at 354 Mill Street, Williamsville, is hereby appointed to the Arts, Culture, and Diversity Committee
until the end of the 2022-2023 official village year.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Next for reports is trustee Tori.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no resolutions tonight. However, my report, we had Earth Day, Arbor Day last weekend, and it was extremely well attended. It was a perfect weather day. Earth Day had over 13 environmental vendors. The most popular was the Dare to Repair Cafe. And I'm going to just read a few statistics. More than 60 people showed up with their items. 23 items were successfully repaired. 185 pounds of potential waste was diverted from local land. And $2,385 residents on replacement costs. So it was a huge success, and the Dare Repair is more than willing to come back next year. So keep your items for next year, and we'll do it again. But thank you for all those who attended and who tried to attend. Next year, you have another chance. And in terms of meetings this month, Glen Park Joint Board will be meeting on Wednesday at 6 p.m., not at 7. And Environmental is meeting on the 19th at 7:15 here in Village Hall. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next for reports and resolutions is trustee Lothar.
Thank you, Mayor. For my report, I'm just going to report on the beautification committee. They will be meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m. here in Village Hall. They're the folks who are planting the flowers everywhere you see in the village, and they do an absolutely stellar job. And they have to do a little pre-planning on what they're doing, and that's what their meetings consist of. They're open to the public and everyone's welcome. The Meeting House Events Committee will be meeting on Monday, the 19th, in the Meeting House at 6:15 p.m. They've got some events coming up on July 1st. They've got a musical group coming in, Friends of Harmony. They do a patriotic July 4th music selection. That'll be nice. And they got some other things coming up during the summer that they're working on right now. I also wanted to mention, before our next meeting on June 26th, on Sunday, the 25th, the day before our next meeting, we're going to be dedicating the engine at the South Lawn Depot. Those guys got a engine donated. They've refurbished it, repainted it. They've got it sparkling down there. And they're going to be dedicating it at 1 p.m. on Sunday, the 25th at the depot. They're going to have a little ceremony, and they're going to, I'm sure they always have food, and it'll be a nice little event. So if you're looking for something to do on that Sunday, stop down and get a look at the engine, and thank those guys for what they've done down there. They've really turned that depot around to something that we're all very proud of. At 1 o'clock, yeah, Sunday the 25th.
So if you hear a train horn, it's not a ghost.
And for my resolutions, I only have one resolution this evening, and I'm not gonna read the whole thing, it's 2 pages long. But it's, whereas the Historic Preservation Commission has identified several properties that would be considered eligible for designation 711A of the Village of Williamsville Code, including property located at 19 South Lawn Street. They've identified it as significant with persons or events in local, state, and national history. The subject property was built in 1820 during the early development of Williamsville along Buffalo Road, which is down Main Street. One of about 40 residential and commercial structures in the village at that time, and obviously not all of those remain. And it embodies distinguishing characteristics in the building material. It's an early 19th century Greek revival brick residential home. So it's got a commercial tenant in it right now that owns it. And this has been a subject of a public hearing. So I'm going to move that the village go ahead and designate the historic landmark at 19 South Long Street, Williamsville, New York.
Second.
Administrator Kindred, could you call for a roll call vote on that, please?
Who seconded it?
I did.
Christine.
Okay. Trustee Tori,
Yes.
trustee Lother,
Yes.
trustee Hunt,
Yes.
deputy mayor Delano,
Yes.
and Mayor Rogers.
Before I cast my vote, I just want to mention two reasons. Well, I will be voting the way I vote. Number one, I know that the property owner has stated his not particularly being 100% on board with the designation of his property. And also for the fact that the said property owner is in fact a Village of Williamsville employee as well. So for those two reasons, I vote no.
Motion passed 4-0, 4-1.
I will just make a comment that as elected officials, we are a CLG government designated by New York State. And we are, one of the things involved in being a CLG government, a certified local government, is that the criteria that the mayor has just mentioned is not the reason that you don't designate it historic property. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it still doesn't prevent me from using it as my reason and voting no, so I'm still a no, but thank you, trustee Lothar, I appreciate that. Okay, that ends reports and resolutions. Any staff reports this evening?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. All right, no executive session, so I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, and let's go right back into work session and we'll just stay seated up here.
I have a question about parking enforcement. I'm Marty for trustee, I know Marty's one aware. In the 2-hour parking, people park there all day. Are we gonna get somebody to enforce these laws again?
So there's a reorganization meeting that's happening in July, and I believe that there has been some discussion about, from other residents about possibly bringing back parking enforcement, but that would be something that would be determined by the reorganization meeting and the new board. Unless somebody else has something to add up here. So I can't give you an answer right now.
People realize there is a parking problem? I mean, there's a parking problem, but people just abuse, and owners and businesses, they park on Main Street 12 hours a day.
Understood.
I mean, do you agree?
It will be addressed.
Okay. You know, I think it's important to our customers.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so work session, I think we left off with you.
No, I'm done.
Oh, what you gave me? Oh, I handed it down, it's right
Don't
there.
forget the election's next Tuesday.
I don't check that one as regular.
Okay, so Dan, you're done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to update on the
I
dam
was thinking,
project meeting?
No,
Striping
it
that
was
whole end.
basically like an exploratory
They have
thing, but
to
it was nothing official.
approve stop sign on the
It's very long.
right.
Okay,
You know,
I want to take control of that.
like I said.
I- Yeah,
okay,
like, we should own that.
all right.
We have to have
Trustee
some-
Lothar, do you have anything
Yeah, I mean, I do that shit.
Yeah, we had
No,
talked about
it's right,
this
it's not one of mine.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we were selected in the vote, selected for the, yeah, that whole thing.
We're having work session, folks.
The temporary stop sign needs to be pulled forward. It's not a problem.
Hello?
For-
We're having work session. If you have a discussion, you can take it outside,
Go outside.
outside the doors. Thanks, Jordan. I'm not picking on you.
Picking on me.
No. HPC minutes. Administrator Tindren has informed the HPC Commission that she will no longer be taking minutes in the near future. The minutes are to be done by a member of the village, I guess, clerical staff. They have been in the past. It was decades before Judy took it over last year. So I want to make sure that we have coverage, and I'm not sure how that's gonna happen. Have you talked to your staff, Judy?
Not recently, no.
Okay, when do you intend to not do it anymore?
I don't know, I haven't decided.
I'm sorry?
I haven't decided, I'll do it for a while.
Okay.
But we'll see.
All right, well, a replacement for that person taking the minutes is imperative, so when you do decide not to do it, just,
You wanna do it?
I can't do it,
Why not?
I don't know.
Anybody can take minutes, you just may have to pay somebody.
I'm gonna sit there with a tape recorder, that's.
You know what, actually, I'm looking for a part-time job. I'll do the minutes for
Oh, that would
HBC.
be-
There you go. No, I really would. I'm great at doing minutes. I did minutes for many years for traffic and safety and the Meeting House Committee and prior to being on the board, so the offer's out there.
Yeah, years ago, one of the members of HPC took the minutes, but it's gotten to the point
That's
where
not in my
it's
job
become
description.
very involved, very contentious. Sometimes legal issues are
I'm a
involved,
volunteer fire.
and to take a member and have them trying to take minutes and participate in the discussion and vote is not a representation. We don't do it for the planning board, we don't do it for the zoning board, so that's gonna be your issue to figure out, Judy. If you're not gonna do it, then you'll have to get another staff member to do it.
Not that it's probably not in the law, and if I may punch another hole in that, the CL, G law, and guidelines, but I don't think that any, voting body should have a member of that voting body taking minutes for anything. It would be like a board meeting, like, you know what
I
I mean?
agree with that.
Well, you would call for a secretary and
I mean, it's not a good idea because you're busy anyway, but there's also that bias that could enter, you know? A non-decision, that's one thing, but that's a board.
Well, for the time being, we're covered, but if and when that's gonna change, we'll have to address it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay. Trustee Torrey?
Yes, thank you. Environmental, we're keeping that on until, Jason is now taking over. Judy, did he get in contact with you at all yet? From UB? Jason K, I can't pronounce his last name. Kusiewski, not yet?
I don't think so.
Because Matt
I
Burke
think-
is no longer,
Yeah, you told me that.
unfortunately. And Jason is supposed to submit
He
all.
may have sent something to me, but I've been very busy getting the taxes out and year end that.
Okay.
that
Because
is-
we don't want to miss this deadline to get everything in.
Well, I thought that they had everything they needed for the next level. That's what I was told.
Right, but we still need an okay from us, and they're gonna come here, and we're gonna actually push the button and submit everything together, and I was waiting for that email from Jason, because it would go to you.
I did not see an
Okay,
email like
that's the
that.
most important one, where he has everything, and then we have to be together to submit as a team. So it's considered up, okay?
Mhm.
Thank you, so just in case he does reach
Right.
out.
Did you see? anything from-
Earth Day, I talked about during the village board meeting, but I did want to bring up, remember how Wegmans offered volunteers? They were amazing. They were called the Wegmans Giving Circle Team, and I had 5 members from Wegmans who are actual employees of Wegmans show up. And they were exemplary in terms of organizing, helping me with the kids' table, directing people to the right stations, helping the Dare to Repair, taking down names, incredible. So if anybody on this board needs volunteers from Wegmans, go to them. They offered their help and I truly recommend it. They're fabulous. Next I had, I'll update on not the blog yet, but however, Ben placed 4 more bins for recycling at the development on South Cayuga. 4 more, right, Ben? Now, the problem is there are still residents who are using the little bins.
On Wellington, not
On Wellington,
Southgate.
the little bins. So I was asked if any correspondence was filed with the actual, who runs it over there? Who is it?
Okay, so.
Management, that they should no longer place the small bins to the curb. It's now over.
Someone called here on Friday and Corey talked to them. It was a woman who said she was the president, I believe, of the homeowner association.
For which one?
I don't, of Wellington
Of
Village.
Wellington, because there's one on one side and one on the other. They're both separate. That's why one
Yes.
has, yeah.
Yes, so she just explained to the woman that, you know, we brought over the totes. The totes are $80 each, and they would be responsible to pay for the 12 totes. Their other option, the thing with the totes though, they have to have somebody that will wheel them out to the curb every garbage day and then wheel them back. Their other option is to get a recyclable dumpster.
But we were providing them with the totes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they have to be pulled from, the totes are backed by the dumpsters if I'm not
Yeah, correct.
mistaken.
That's where they were placed.
So on garbage day, they need to be moved to the curb.
So shouldn't management be doing that?
Well, we shouldn't be.
No, of course not.
So that's what we told this woman. And she seemed to think that they wouldn't have anybody to do that. And correct me if I'm wrong, they were brought out last week and they sat there for a day or two after garbage day?
I don't know.
That's what I had heard today from someone.
Well, I thought Modern was no longer gonna pick up the bins.
Yeah, we thought that too, how many years ago?
So
But I
maybe
don't,
there should be better
recently-
correspondence between
So,
Modern,
Yeah,
Wellington,
we told
and
her
us.
that they would no longer be able to use the bins.
Mhm.
And their other option is to get, Modern to bring them a recycling dumpster like the garbage dumpster. So
Modern
she was
took my
taking-
bin. When we went to
Right.
the totes, they took my
They were
bin.
supposed to, so I
Tell Modern
don't
to take
know,
the bins.
I don't know if their Modern contract who does their dumpster does their bins. I don't know. That I don't know.
Different truck,
It's not a
different truck,
So
totally different.
I don't know why they didn't take the bins.
Do you know who does their recycling bin by any chance? Is it
Modern.
Modern? It's Modern, right?
So she was gonna take it back to their board and they're gonna make a decision and let us know,
right,
supposedly by this week.
There we go.
Okay, because I'm getting complaints still from people saying, oh, they're putting their little bins out and we're getting all the garbage in my yard. From the recycling.
Well, let's see what she has to say.
Well, that also, I hate to say it, with a rat problem, you know, we clean out containers and many of them are not cleaned out and it attracts rats as well, so it needs to be. Yeah, okay.
They ought to
Maybe you would
be
sit on her.
contracting the recycling.
They're
Because
like
they're-
cans and such in recycling.
They ought to be contracting their recycling.
Oh,
We
yeah.
should not
Under our
have,
That's what I'm
code,
saying, no.
it's, we're.
we should not have dropped
They should
totes
be
off.
privately arranging
So
for the removal of all of their garbage and their.
Well, we just found this out though,
Should we send them?
recently,
Okay.
Ben. We didn't know that,
Found what out?
Should we send them?
that they should be doing their own.
Well, I
completely.
thought,
That's
I
what
mean,
Chip
that's
wrote
what
in
the
that email.
code says,
We didn't know that
but-
2 months ago.
but
We don't have an address for them.
Wait.
It's in the code,
Homeowners
Back up.
Association.
and our code
Yeah.
enforcement officer should
Chip
enforce
sent
that.
out an email and said,
So are they paying for the recycling separate then?
no, they're just picked up under
Under
the
the
village's
village's
contract,
contract.
apparently,
and we really don't need to do that, according to Chip,
according to the code.
According to the
according to
code.
the code, and, yeah.
Because of the type of.
Because
Because
it's
of the
a,
number of units that they.
I mean, fine.
It's a multifamily residential
Right.
unit, which under the code should have a portable transfer container, which is a dumpster. Now,
So-
Code enforcement ought to, kind of pick up on that type of stuff.
That's the way it should be then.
I would think so, but we
That
dropped
would
off,
solve all of our
we
problems.
dropped a dozen recycling totes off to them. Said, here you go, figure it out.
Well, even before that, we dropped off green containers for everyone eons ago.
And that's
Yeah,
probably
When
long
it
time.
started. Well,
Long
I'm just saying, but we set a precedence as a village when we dropped off the little green boxes, right? If you're saying that.
Everyone
But
got
this,
those.
this.
But-
code
but
is
for
from
She's saying at
1992.
that point, we should
Oh, yeah,
have.
sure.
No, I'm saying at that point, if you're saying the code
Well,
says they should have.
Let's check the dates on the code.
1992.
Okay, so since 1992.
We have
Someone
been
should have done it.
supplying,
This goes back, again, to the
Way
tote
before anybody-
forests we have around this village that have been allowed to fester. Totes have been given out ad nauseam. Yeah, sure, have them. And now we're at a position where, like you said, it's potential dangerous. You have restaurants with a dozen totes in the back that, may or not be secured. it's a much larger issue, and it, I think, comes down to enforcement and not having that continuity of enforcement over the years.
It seems to me any food providing business should have their own dumpsters and recycling.
That ought to go through, planning ought to be saying, hey,
Mhm.
you guys are a restaurant, where's your dumpster?
Because it's an issue, and
I mean, I don't know what's going on at Milo's. Was there any provision for a dumpster at Milo's?
Probably, but I don't know, I definitely the site plan. I mean, usually the planning board does that, is something that is addressed, usually.
At Rationale's was not,
Rationale's was not?
and they got totes.
Yeah,
Or they were more than
that's gonna
two.
have to be adjusted down the line.
where are they gonna put it, in the front yard? They don't have any parking.
They don't even have any parking, I know,
In the back.
Rationale's.
That's part of the problem.
Don't they own that whole lot in the back, all the way to West Spring?
No,
Who does?
it's somebody else, it's not, they have no parking even.
Well.
That's the planning board.
Like I said,
Okay, so we're gonna,
All right,
let
back
me
to
select
square
it back
one,
to
I
us.
guess.
Yes,
Well, as soon as you hear back from them, please let us know, hopefully sooner than later, and then maybe we're gonna have to revert back to actually having them take back the totes and having them legally,
If they're not gonna
Get a
do what you
dumpster.
asked them to do, just take your totes back.
we're gonna take them back and they're gonna have to get a dumpster.
We're not picking up your garbage anymore, and your recycling anymore.
Yeah, we should instruct
Your recycling.
All right, all right.
monitors to
Right,
pick
like,
up those
we don't.
bins as of such and such.
All right, look here, I'm gonna talk about Rhine Malt real quickly. Ben was kind enough to do a map, can you pass this down? On Rhine Malt with the parking, do you guys remember the parking issue?
how can we forget?
Yeah, the east side versus the west side. So Ben did a measurement and it appears that there's actually only one extra parking spot on the west side of the street where we are thinking of switching to. However, there are many reasons why we should still switch it to the west side. Number one, the building that has the issue, the parking would be right against their building versus the residents' houses. And additionally, it would be away from the fire hydrants. So, and as we know, parking should always be on the opposite side of fire hydrants anyway. So with this in mind, you see the little map. I think we had discussed actually sending letters out to every resident, Dan? And is that what we still want to do?
I think you
Or do we
better
just
talk
want to
to
go
neighbors.
forward with this and have a public hearing?
I think we should, anytime a code change, a public hearing, and I think
Well, we're gonna do that
that's-
anyway, but Dan had mentioned possibly sending a letter first.
No, everybody was pushing on that. That's what public hearings are for, but, I mean, if we wanna notify the neighborhood over there, that's fine. We did the same thing when we shifted it over on Reese, and it was productive,
So you notified him first before the public hearing?
We notified them in like the preliminary top, like in this stage, before we even started.
Do you recommend we do that, or do we just go right to a public hearing? Does everybody agree with the change, first of all?
I think it makes sense on the opposite side from the fire hydrants, yes.
Yes, number one, and
Yeah,
even though it's just one additional, actually it's also better for the school buses that come in and take a left onto School Street. They have more room. It's a safer way for the buses. I mean, if I take this back to traffic and safety, they're gonna say to me, it's the board's decision. So I'm not gonna take it back to traffic and safety again. So I'm asking the board.
Well, I think going back to traffic and safety one more time with this done, that hey,
they didn't see that.
trust me. Been doing this stuff for a
And they're
decade.
gonna say, but it's up to the village board.
Well, fine, but then they saw it.
All right.
Because if we just do it, then they say, well, the village board does stuff without asking
Okay,
us.
so anyway, everybody
You
review
know I'm-
this.
you know I get
My
accused of that,
question
so.
was, do we still inform the residents, or after traffic and safety reviews it, do we just go for a public hearing?
Well, it wasn't me that brought up the getting a hold of every resident over there.
I thought it was.
No, it was,
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
All right, good. We'll take it to traffic and safety and then we'll come
I
back.
think take it to traffic and safety, and I think, obviously a
Put it on
public
the
hearing
sign.
then.
Okay, good.
I've heard from a couple residents on Rhinewell,
Yeah,
and they aren't particularly in favor of it, and they don't know anything about it. So I think it would be, helpful if, you ran right out there when, the one gentleman complained. I think you should talk to a couple of the other residents and get their take on it.
All right, well, the school year's almost over, so the bus thing is kind of moved for a little
Right.
bit. Unless they do summer school, which I can't imagine is as congested. So let's go back to traffic and safety first, and then we'll decide.
Are we
I
gonna
guess,
approach the
you guys
residents?
Decide how we're gonna move forward. Have that big of a change, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's not necessary, but it isn't a bad idea. I would be a little miffed if they did it on my street and I didn't know about it until one day they changed, the signs were changed, you know what I mean?
Because then they come out, trust me.
Well, if they understood why,
Well,
I think they'll
And it was,
understand.
it was a
reasoning.
little difficult with Reese, but,
Highland.
it was, Highland was part of that too, but Reese was probably the most difficult. We were out there standing out there in the rain with residents, arguing about the pros and cons and then traffic. out
you
there
actually had
measuring.
people out on the street.
Yeah, and because that was a big change.
Mhm.
But ultimately it worked because as soon as the change went in, there was never a complaint. And that's 10 years plus.
And there may not be a complaint at all, but to take a whole street.
No, I agree, Mary. It's just like you take down a tree in front of somebody's house, they want to be notified, any type of changes like that directly in front of their homes, and I agree with that. But I'll take it to traffic and safety and then we'll come back.
Well, you know what, there's probably 20 houses on Rhinewell Street. Yeah.
I know.
Why don't you send a postcard? Does traffic and safety have a budget line?
No.
All right, then find the money in the budget, it's there, and send a postcard. Just saying, we're contemplating changing the parking
From
from
east
one side of the
side.
street to the other to gain an additional parking spot and increase safety and pull them away from the fire hydrant.
Yeah.
And
I'll-
give them
I'll
your
work on the
email.
wording.
Okay,
We'll work
all
on
right,
that.
we'll do that. All right,
And get
anything,
feedback.
I have,
And if they care, they'll come to a public hearing and follow it.
yes, they will, yeah, okay. Thank you, Mary, we'll do that, Dan, I'll work on that. But Ben, did you see my email with the hemlock plant?
Yep.
Will you take care of that?
I will get, yep.
You already saw that?
Saw that.
Yeah,
Saw
those
that.
are, very deadly, especially to animals and
Not
humans.
exactly something I'd like to be handling, but yes, we will
I
send our
know, that's
employees
why I
to
was
take
like, I
care
don't
of
know if
it.
you would pull in somebody else to handle that.
They want to spray it, you don't want to hear that, so.
They have to be dug out.
Right.
Um,
Well, they could be herbicided. That is a
And I'd like to
suitable,
do before they start,
yes. So
Yeah.
I will make sure that we are fully Tyvek'd and
Yeah, I was gonna.
covered so that we don't
Yeah.
get blisters and
I'm sorry.
burning.
But
What?
I sent everybody an
I
email.
know,
yeah.
what
It
is
was,
It's-
I have volunteers who
Drive down
want to
Rock.
work on the bioswales on Spring Street and Rock Street. And the one at the end of Rock Street has quite a few very poisonous hemlock plants. And they're dangerous to humans and animals alike. And
If you brush up against it, you'll break into blisters, really.
it's bad.
It's nasty
So
stuff. Yeah,
I
it's very nasty.
unfortunately asked
So-
Ben if he could take care of it.
Of course we do.
All right.
Make sure.
Appreciate it. And then when it's done, can the guys go back and start working on it then?
I hope so.
My volunteers?
I will not endorse nor not endorse that. You're not gonna,
They've done such a
you're
good
not gonna
job
get
on
me to
it.
tell you to go back into there.
But they won't touch it until the hemlock's done, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
maybe just stay away from it.
All right, that's it, that's all I have,
Yeah.
thank you.
For the guys, I mean.
I'm not
that stuff is
particularly
really
thrilled
good.
about this, so yeah,
No, but that,
I'm,
because that is really, that stuff is really
that
not
came
a
today,
joke,
you
and
sent that?
need to,
So, yeah, I'm digesting and considering options of how to deal with it.
yeah.
That
Okay.
is- That's part of digesting and
Okay.
figuring out options to deal with it.
Well, I mean,
I'd rather put that liability on someone else.
Is there a,
Let me dig around enough, and I'll
okay,
find something.
Yeah.
You're paying for it though. Glen Park.
it's not part of Glen Park.
Sure it is.
No, it's on the outskirts of Glen Park.
Probably came
I'm
from
gonna pull out my measuring stick.
Probably came from Glen Park.
No, it didn't. There's nothing in Glen Park. Has anybody seen it anywhere else?
I have not, but you
Neither
know,
have I.
I suspect it is probably somewhere else.
But you know, I found some Tree of Heavens, little ones in Glen Park. What do you wanna do about those?
Find somebody to pull them out. Or spray them.
I don't wanna spray
I can
them.
have the same contractor offer up a suggestion on that too.
Please, because I know where they are. They're very tiny still.
Yeah,
They look very similar to the sumac.
half of Glen Park is invasive species, if not more than that.
There's a lot
Well,
of poison ivy there too.
That's not
Yeah, I
invasive,
know.
that's native.
but yeah, that's native. How about a poison oak?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't either, but somebody, a relative of Mary said she has seen it. We went and looked and I couldn't find it.
Not typical.
It was it looks similar to another plant, Mary, but it wasn't poison oak.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
but the poison ivy is native and honestly, the birds feed from it, so it's just, be careful, people, around poison ivy. That's all I can say.
No, I'm only mentioning it because I think at one point it was by the kids' nature play area, but I think that was on one of those trees. It was kind of growing up, but maybe it's gone now. I don't know.
It's back there, there's still a good chunk of it.
Okay, all right,
Leaves of 3.
that's in B.
But yeah, if you get back to me, if you can hire a company, then we can take care of the Tree of Heavens too. Not that many.
There's a ton of really big ones.
Those are sumacs, are you sure?
No. But a lot of that's in Amherst State Park,
Yeah, we don't have to go in there.
so that
I
which is
told
right on the
though-
border, we're not worried
I
about
told,
it.
what's the guy from
Got it.
Amherst?
Got it.
From the town of Amherst, what's his name? Dominic?
Mhm.
I told him about the trees of heaven. And you wanted to get on board with it, and then I didn't hear from him again. I guess because everything's changing over there.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it. That's all.
Trustee Hunt?
Just two things really quick. Ben, you saw the email about the two broken pieces that Garrison.
Garrison, yep,
Okay,
contacted the manufacturer, so.
okay, perfect. Thank you. And the tax bills, Judy, thanks for clarifying that, but I did have some people ask why they're going to Binghamton. So is there anything that we can put on the website, just why there's a change in where you're
Put
returning
an
them?
explanation, I mean, you guys are the only ones who've questioned it. I'm trying to think if anybody, I shouldn't say that, there's been a couple, I guess, who've asked. We just tell them we've changed the banks. We're getting interest now on the money, where at M&T we did not. M&T charges a fee.
Right.
Chase did not. We had to leave Chase a few years ago and go to M&T because Chase needed the UPC scannable, and they weren't on the tax bills. Well, now they're back on the tax bill, so now we were able to go back and use Chase again. So it's a money saving. Change.
So is it credited to our account more quickly when it goes to Binghamton versus when?
It's the same. Actually, it's probably quicker because we're using FedEx overnight. We don't pay for it. Chase provides us the envelopes with the labels. Last year, one of the reasons I looked into it was because last year we went to look for some, people kept telling me that their checks weren't cashed. And I knew the one lady had paid because she was one of my kids' teachers, and I'm like, I know she was here a couple weeks ago, and now, it's June 30th, and they're gonna get charged late fees. So then I called the bank, and, we don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, we're talking about $100,000 in deposits, and you can't find them? Well, come to find out, they were only sending our stuff from the branch to their lockbox once a week. Prior to that, it was daily. But last week, that never told us that was the change. So once I started questioning, then they found the deposit and it got posted. I don't know if it was because it was a big deposit, nobody felt like handling it. I don't know, but we found it, and but then, like I said, then it was like there was this delay in all these deposits, and it's because they were only sending them over once a week.
Okay.
So the money is being deposited in the bank in Binghamton,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bills that you take here, you're overnighting them to Binghamton?
Where last year we would take them to the branch and then the branch would send them to their lockbox, which
But
is
you
at
still
Sweet Home.
receipt them here, if somebody comes in
Oh, yeah.
person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and I'm just giving everyone, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I didn't give them to you then on May 22nd, so I had the copies of, I think all of you requested a copy of the letter I was sending regarding that CLG audit, so there it is. Judy, I have a hard copy for you to give you, so maybe, I don't know, I can send it to you digitally too if you want it. So Ben, you had on sanitary pretreatment.
Sure, that's
Do you want to talk
a
about that?
conversation that I've had with the town of Amherst Engineering to incorporate their pre-treatment officials to do inspections of the restaurant grease traps, essentially. It's not something that is handled in our village. Code enforcement hasn't done it. It's not really in my scope. And I'm not an expert. So using the town's resources to do annual, maybe more often, biannual or some other, as needed inspections, like when we pump thousands of gallons out of manholes, somebody should be checking on that. The town has a very rigorous program for that. And I would suggest that it would behoove us to work with them on that. And I know that Jeff Burrows is working on the MOU for our sewer usage. And I've talked about incorporating that into that agreement, our use agreement with the town of Amherst sewer.
Okay.
What about that letter though that was sent to the restaurant? Did you get a reply?
As far as I know,
The
I
one
didn't,
today
didn't come
did
from
not
me.
go.
No, it came from the engineer.
Yeah,
They-
so,
What was, any replies?
No.
that I'm aware of.
We sent the
Today-
bill, they paid the bill
What bill?
from the last one.
For the service of emptying the manholes.
No,
of
we're
grease.
not talking about a bill, we're talking about a fine.
Yeah, no.
They have not been fined. And
They-
so today I got a draft copy, and Judy and I sent it to you. I just got it today, sending him another letter.
Yeah.
Saying that nothing's been done. And in fact, 2,500 gallons of grease was removed.
This
from the
morning.
Sanitary sewer
Is that what was
manhole
going on
this
this
morning.
morning? Is he in front?
Is Marty still
is-
there? No, he's not here.
Issuing another notice of violation, a cease and desist order, and a compliance order. So,
Probably would have been a good conversation while Webb was here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, under our code, it really is, the town engineer, or the village engineer has the authority to do all these things. Including imposing the administrative.
So who wrote that letter?
Shep, the village engineer.
Can
Or
we have,
Shelley, there, yeah.
can we have a copy of that as a follow-up to the other one?
It's a draft.
Yeah, it's
It hasn't-
just
it hasn't
draft.
been
I
sent
just-
yet.
Oh, it hasn't been
just-
sent
no,
yet?
no, no,
Oh.
I just got this today.
So when you
They just
do,
pulled
okay, oh,
2,500
I see.
gallons today. apparently.
Oh
So
my
who did that?
gosh.
Mackin Services.
Um,
We had I got a call yesterday at about 7:30 in the morning that there was a little bit of there was an overflow in front of Reed's where sewage was coming out of their vent and out into the street.
In front of Reed's?
Yeah, because
Of
the entire line
It was full of grease.
plugged
From the
again.
restaurant.
Oh my gosh, this is, I mean, no way.
It goes back to 1975. There is a case file like that of letters.
The same restaurant?
Yes.
This is, you know.
Yeah, no,
it's
so,
just-
eh, so I think we should talk to Ed. I mean, I think
Did you
that
take
there's
pictures, Ben?
more
Yeah.
that we could threaten them with here.
It's always discussed every time we do it, like every 2 months.
You document, you take pictures, everything. We need to move forward with this and quickly because they're laughing at us basically. They're saying, screw you. I can do whatever I want.
Well, yeah, there's no repercussions.
This is terrible. Do they not realize where this ends up?
I don't know.
Apparently,
They don't care.
there's
They
never
don't
been
care
a
apparently,
consequence.
yeah.
Well, no, but they did care because there was no water behind their restaurant, so they must care.
Oh, they care about.
Right, and they care that they've got rats running through the parking lot.
Oh, too.
I mean, really?
So, just, a bad actor.
May I make a comment on that? I'm Tom Young from Ed Young's.
I'm telling.
We put a grease trap in the creek view about 15 years ago. 15 years ago, it wasn't up to code. So he got away with it 15 years ago by putting in 2 small grease traps. But what Sorrentinos had to put in recently in the last 5 years is a bigger,
It's a 1,500 gallon.
1,500 gallon.
That's
I think the
very-
creek view's capacity is maybe
It's a
400s
2x4.
or something.
It's barely anything. It's also.
But there's gotta be guidelines about what size. grease
Yeah,
trap
so
goes in.
what
Somebody-
what they're being ordered to do here, although they've already been ordered to do this and haven't responded to it, was to submit a plan to upgrade and install an appropriate grease trap interceptor designed by a New York licensed professional engineer and certified to be of appropriate size. Also, weekly maintenance logs shall be kept on the premises available by inspection. So that's all fine, but the problem is, I think we need something to make them do that, which, could
How about
be,
Board of Health shut them down?
well, cut off their access, terminate their access to or impose a fine, and, it could be a suspended fine if they
Is there a
comply.
fine built into that section of the code, Jeff?
There's 2, well,
I think it's 10 grand a day.
well, it depends.
Of the, yeah.
So under Article 10, which is enforcement of the sanitary sewer regs, but that does also prohibit the discharge of any sewage or polluted water into a stream. So that does have penalties of $10,000 a day, up to $10,000.
Has that been noted in the previous correspondence?
No.
Would you note it in this correspondence?
Well, you may want to go further than that. You may want to impose it.
Let's
At
impose
least
it.
say-
I say impose it.
Just say,
It went on way too long.
the way it frequently happens in other contexts or with other agencies, it may be a suspended penalty. Like if you comply with this, if you actually do this, you won't have to pay, but, that may get their attention. But anyway, there's a little conflict in these sections, because this has been cobbled together over the years. Under the stormwater article, the fines are much lower. Those
We're
are
not
only,
talking stormwater, we're talking
well, we're
sanitary,
both.
right?
They're both. Yeah,
So
it's
they're
both.
discharging
Should be
directly
actually more
into
than
the
just
creek,
stormwater.
which is
Stop.
part of the village's stormwater system.
Mhm.
And apparently it was in the sanitary sewer, which was
Okay.
detected today. So they're really in violation of both. Plus, there's actually overlap between the two.
Okay, and did we set a hard deadline in the first letter?
I
What was
think,
the-
I don't have that letter in front of me, but from what I understand,
It's already passed.
they just blew it off.
30
Yeah,
days.
they just blew it up. There was nothing.
I think we need to cite them and start.
So
imposing-
I think we, again, just got this today. Apparently, I didn't even know the date. He said that was pulled out today.
Yeah.
When I read that. So I think we need to talk to Ed, village engineer, and go over some of these other tools that we might be able to use, because, based on past practice, if we just keep telling them to do things, but there's no
Enforcement.
consequences other than paying some. So what was the bill we sent?
It was for like $1,800.
But that's just their,
That's
that's their
nothing.
cost of doing business.
That's one night of, a couple of drinks at the bar for.
Brings that check.
So did we send them a bill for this?
Not
Apparently.
yet, not this time,
I don't have a
The
bill yet.
last
I will.
time. but as soon as we get the information,
Okay.
we'll send out another bill.
I mean, that's right. There's also, potential criminal penalties too.
Right.
That's,
I'm
were.
tired of doing their plumbing
oh, yeah,
and
no,
us
totally.
doing it, and
totally
then
agree.
waiting a year to collect the money on their taxes.
They were given an appearance ticket. that was adjourned at the last.
Okay.
So I think they should
You
be
should attend.
appearing at the next court. And I believe that Tony gave them an appearance ticket for today's violation as well.
All right.
Okay, for the next court?
What is the next court date?
I don't know. I have to check with Tony. I did not see that appearance ticket.
Okay. Court's
So
on
he's got
Friday.
two now, back to back.
Back to
Yeah, I
back.
know, but-
Yeah. So that got adjourned at their request, or?
I don't know.
So is Tom handling that?
Again, I
Or
don't know.
does Ed, so that's, I mean, the
So
way
that's where it's, because you have our fire inspector putting out
Yeah.
appearance tickets, while our engineers also
I mean, it's
sending
just-
letters.
Because, you know, and the code doesn't say, the code just says this, stormwater, I'm sorry, what's the position? Oh no, this actually does say the engineer of record.
Or his agent, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can always be done, but the code here talks about the engineer of record, but then the storm sewer section talks about the stormwater management officer,
Who's the
who I
code?
think is, I mean, that would be in the reorg, but I
That's
think that's
code
the,
enforcement officer typically.
well, is,
I
I mean, I
think
don't know. Who do
we
I thought the
just
village
recently
engineer-
appointed Chuck.
Shut
That's
back
what
to
I
that.
thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's
I'm
what I
I'm
thought,
pretty sure
too.
we did.
Hey, Ben, when that happened in front of Reed's today, did Wendy ask why her sewage was overflowing
Yesterday morning, yes.
yesterday morning? She did ask you? And you told her the reason?
And I'm sorry, Marty was there this morning too. And Sunday morning, actually.
We were fortunate, our lateral did not back up into our building.
Yeah.
It's farther back, but when it's closer to
I-
the street.
Wouldn't be surprised if you got some in there, but you
And
know what I
we ran
feel.
water for about 4 hours today. Just
Okay.
When you guys were jetting it this
Yeah.
morning, we ran water.
So I've got another company coming in to do some additional cleaning tomorrow, because there's some stones and other stuff down there, and we're gonna run a camera through it too, just to doubly sure that we're okay. I'm a little concerned that it might have a collapsed pipe too, so hopefully not. That gets a lot of abuse because we're in there jetting it every other month. So I saw a bunch of stones in the trough this morning and just about fell over. So it's never a good sign. Hopefully it's nothing.
Just so the board understands that the reason that thing blocks all the time is because it's the first sewer on the line. Right. Because the creek's in the way and the line runs
Yeah.
toward east.
Right.
So if the main culprit blocks it, he's not getting any water flow from anybody else.
Right.
pushing
Wow.
Like some other restaurants in the other
through. I
direction.
can break it. But it's a very tough situation.
Well, I was in the basement. I was in the basement and they were not maintaining their traps
Oh, and
at all.
they're on a as needed maintenance.
And they should be cleaning that thing.
Today, when they had to pump it out, that was as needed.
They should be cleaning that like twice a day or twice a week at least.
And it should be up to standards.
Yeah. And you probably shouldn't have
And
your
I
ice
believe
bucket
you got a
sitting on
quote
top.
on it from somebody last week, but when we gonna.
Well,
It's disgusting.
I'll have it in the bottle, please.
Yes.
Sorry.
I don't know how, I honestly don't know how it's bad down there. I get it. Floor is all slippery. Anyway, that was the adventure for this Monday morning.
So what you're saying is you're not like running out.
I'm not
having
gonna,
dinner
I will
there.
make, I don't believe that.
Exactly. Neither am I then.
Are you?
So how is it, just one more question on it though, how is it, running into the storm system?
They have a drain in the back of their fenced area behind the kitchen where they hose out their screens.
Oh, so it's just from that?
And their mop water. So they're two separate. It's not like they're pumping grease into the creek. I know that's been said. That's not true. They are not pumping anything anywhere.
They're just.
But their housekeeping is perhaps not
Yeah.
up to,
what's the screen, what the screens are?
like the hood screens. or grease baskets. I mean,
So they're just probably closing those out back.
they're hosing those out back and go right into the creek. I've seen other restaurants doing the same thing. So
It's not okay.
What do restaurants without a creek outside do?
it goes to the storm sewer,
Right.
Which is all, it's
which
awful.
goes to the creek.
Yeah, which goes to the
So
creek, which goes to the.
You all have a creek in your backyards, one way or the other, because
Yeah,
that's where it all goes.
Exactly. And eventually, yep, all our waterways, you wonder why they're polluted?
So this is one thing where having a good, strong code enforcement would help.
I totally agree.
The sooner
Well,
the
they have
better. The
appropriate
sooner,
sized
no,
grease traps.
the sooner that happens, the sooner maybe they don't thumb their nose at us.
Right. So anyway, picnic tables are in
Oh, good.
for South Lawn
Great.
and assembled. It's
So you're putting those out,
probably tomorrow.
oh, great.
It's gonna take 4 men to move each one. Nice to meet you, Tom.
The teeter totters and, all that are painted, you saw that, and most of the benches are done.
Yep,
There's
yep.
a few that,
What you still
and
got some?
what else, the water fountain, when is that going in?
I got the whole partly excavated and got distracted by grease and sewers, so,
So soon though?
yeah, we're in
You're
process.
putting 2 over there, right?
Yes.
One by the-
Oh,
Okay, and then, there was something else, I saw the grass seed down, what we're getting right now, which is good.
Yeah.
Inspection.
I think, oh, that's
Seasonal
right,
fair for Glen
that's
Park.
right, where the pavilion used to be.
We're gonna seed it.
I know you're to seed it, you're gonna plant a tree in boulders there, we talked about.
Right now, I'm just gonna seed it.
I saw the seeding down.